Yeah. Just let me know. Oh, he's on the buses.
Yeah, so
Ready to
will
go?
that be around permission to enter? Or are you gonna wait till it comes up on? I don't
On the
think it
agenda.
comes up.
Please stand for the pledge.
He wants to talk on the LTC.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Gendron,
Here.
Mr. Gignac,
Here.
Mr. Hoey,
Here.
Mayor Kennedy,
Yeah.
Ms. Martin,
Here.
Mr. Dakota,
Here.
Ms. Doherty.
Here.
7 present.
First item before us is a special order of business, spotlight on excellence for the summer mathematics program. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks to all the parents and all the children being here. It's great. Tonight we'll be spotlighting the K through 8 summer mathematics program, and I'm going to ask my assistant Robin Desmond to do some explanations.
Thank you, Superintendent Kafawi. Tonight, we are honoring all of our students who participated in the Summer Mathematics Challenge. We had great participation this year, and so we've asked all schools to have a lottery and draw 3 representatives to come and receive a certificate and a Barnes & Noble gift card to honor their achievements tonight. So in just a moment, we will start calling our students by school up to the podium to receive their certificate. I want to take a minute to just thank all of the parents, guardians, community partners, teachers, school staff members, and the school committee for supporting us in this endeavor. It's a really important endeavor for our students to be sharpening their skills over the summer and striving for continuous improvement. And I want to just make sure that everybody who is a part of this, it takes a partnership, and I want to thank everybody for their support with this initiative.
Mr. Mayor.
So at this time, we're going to ask the representatives from the Bailey School to come forward, and I'm going to call each student's name. We're going to start with Natalia Fuentes. You can go right here.
Tough to get down.
Sophie Grady. Claire Guthrie. From the Bartlett School, Ernenola Ajay. Sorahar Heck. Joshua Sandoval. From the Butler School. From the Daly School, Javier Gonzalez. Emily Hembre. Gabriel Lemos. From the Lincoln School, Joseph Fromming. Hayden Gaspar. And Daphne Porsang. What school? From the Green Elge, we have Damares Mello. Thomas Lamarck. And Samantha Phillips. From the McAuliffe, we have Abel Cuevas. And Zoe Provencher. From the McAvenue School, we have Aaliyah Colcord. Nyla Lynn Mabecca. Anthony Pove. From the Moody School, we have Alex Cruz. Ava Geraldo. And Connor Landry. Colin Landry. Oh, no. From the Morey School, we have Jackson Mercado. And Heidi Timoney. From the Merkland School, we have Liane Macasio. No. Parina Poo. And Caden Segru. From the Pawtucketville, we have Trevor Dodge. Jayana Santiago. And Tevin Sun. From the Pine Arts, we have Kelvin Baez. Nathaniel Haley. Isabella Seguela. From the Riley School, we have Caleb Bastien. Madison Marshall. Madeline McQuaid. From the Robinson School, we have Gretchen Marks. Zachary Medina. Helena Lim New. From the Shaughnessy School, we have Ziandra DeRocha. Leonardo Kung. And Kayla Toy. From the STEM Academy, we have Nasara Hang. Monique M. And Caleb Koke. From the Stocklosa School, Fatima Ahmed Ali. Giselle Huertas. Eric De Oliveira. From the Sullivan School, we have Emma Burns. Olivia Gallagher. Ashley Vargas. From the Wang School, we have Elmira Drinkowski Men. Alice Mwangi. Enrique Relades. From the Washington School, Cameron Cloutier. Ava Kuhn. Sorry, that's Ava Cohen. And Aubrey Norith. I want to take a moment to ask for everyone to join me in a round of applause for all of our students' hard work. At this time, we are going to ask the students to come forward and stand with the superintendent, the mayor, the school committee members, so that families can take a group photo.
Jackie. Jackie, come on.
Right, no, my nephew, right there with the glasses, yellow blue, behind the girl with the green jacket. Oh, he's on the other side. He's next to you. You think he's hiding? Well, he's like hiding.
Okay, I can't see now. Okay. Thank you. Cassandra, baby, pull up your head, your paper, your certificate. Get the back of your head. It looks good though. Yes, I do. It's the jaw. It works.
School committee to take a 5-minute recess while we clear the council chamber.
Hogan, that will take you, Sandra. Okay.
What's the gift card?
Wait, Dave. Go say, go hurry up, run down there. Dave.
This way, and we'll come on this side.
Yeah.
I found her.
I mean, I've been. Hey, he fell in love. He fell in love. That's it. You win it. You win it all. Hey, I left a message. I said it's about history, man. You'll regret this. Good. No, yeah. You gotta keep working them.
How are you? How are you?
Okay, Maeve, come here.
Good, how are
Thank you.
Thank you.
You get lost. That's why you can't go to Disneyland. Maeve can't. Uncle Roo did. You'll be at the police station. You won't be. No,
Connie. Maddie's waving to you. Madeline's waving to you, Maddie. She's waving to you. My friend Alicia? Yeah. Did you see her when she saw me? She was waving to me over there. Yeah. Isn't it? I love when I see the little boys in their suits. Cuties. Yeah.
Call the meeting back to order. The next order of business is a permission to enter. Chair would entertain a motion to approve the permission to enter for November 15, 2017.
Move to approve.
Move to approve by Mr. Hoy, second by Mr. Gignac. Any discussion? So, Mr. Superintendent, included in the permission to enter is the contract for Pride Star, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion?
What are we on?
Are we discussing permission to enter? I'm sorry, I didn't.
We can discuss permission to enter if you would like.
Okay, so if we could discuss the contract for Pride Star. I don't have a problem awarding that contract tonight. What I do have concerns about is the amount of time that we will still be working with SPNR in the transition to Pride Star. So I would like to request that we ask the law office.
I had a discussion with the law department today, as did the superintendent, and the superintendent's has the understanding that the superintendent has the understanding that we'll be voting on Pride Star tonight.
I understand that, but part of my ability to be able to vote on Pride Star is my concern that we have children being transported in buses that do not have that safety feature. Because part of our discussion with SPNR back a month ago was that they could put those, I forget what the technology is called. Checkmate, for $25,000 on their buses. So my motion would be that we ask the law department to negotiate with SPNR about our termination to make sure that we can get that put on the buses while our kids are being on those buses. Because what is the timeline? Permission to enter doesn't say what the timeline is, does it? I don't remember seeing that.
The current proposed timeline of transition is the February vacation.
Okay. So it's not listed on the permission to enter?
No, it's listed on the proposed contract from Pride Star.
The contract we saw from Pride Star, you mean the one that had different options that we discussed at our last meeting, last week? Because at that time, the timeline had not been determined. And I'm not arguing about when we do it. I just want to make sure that our kids are protected in that period of time while Pride Star gets ready. It's my understanding that we can that the law office could work with SPNR to negotiate the termination agreement. We have not voted to terminate them yet, right?
No.
And just ensure, because when we talked with them in early October, they said they could put the checkmates into the buses. It's an add-on to the bus, and just, to me, that's a safety issue that we should be looking at in this, as we go forward with this transition. We were going to do it when we talked about going out for bids. That was part of the motion that Mr. Gendron had added on to my motion, and we all thought that made sense, so why not try to do that now? That's my only concern. I would feel much more comfortable voting to move forward with Pride Star, knowing that those buses are going to be equipped with that checkmate thing, that we could work it out, the law department would handle it for us. So that's my motion. You want me to say it again?
Yeah, please.
So I'm looking for the law office to negotiate our termination agreement with SPNR so that we can have those checkmates installed as soon as possible while we work towards the transition to a new bus carrier for special education services.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second, motion's made and seconded. Discussion on the motion. No discussion on the motion? Let me just say this before we vote, that we spoke about this in executive session last week. And I thought, and the idea was that we would postpone action until this evening in order to consult with the law department. The law department has consulted with me and with the superintendent today. The law department's understanding, the city solicitor's understanding, is that there is support on the school committee to go ahead with Pride Star. So the executive session that the city solicitor was going to come to, she's not coming to, and we won't have to have. So I guess I don't really understand, other than to delay, I don't understand the point of the motion.
If I could just clarify, I'm not delaying this vote at all. I'm happy to vote on Pride Star tonight. I just want to make sure that along with that we're doing everything possible to have the current buses, the current situation remedied to be as safe as possible for our students. And I also spoke with the city solicitor on my way here tonight, and I asked, could we do this? And she said, absolutely. It's
Okay,
not.
all right. So your motion is not asking that we delay?
Instead of, no.
It's just
in
concurrent
addition,
with.
right.
Gotcha.
Because for me, to make this vote, I want to feel confident that we're doing everything right now that we
Okay.
can do. And I have no qualms at all about making the vote on Pride Star. This is in addition.
Okay. Any discussion, any further discussion on the motion, Mr. Hoey?
I would like to just add one thing. We've done a lot of work on this issue for the past month, and I feel that safety for the children is the #1 priority. This school committee stood up strong and told SBR we're not going to stand for any kid being left on a bus for 5.5 hours. And other people have made mistakes too. I think Pride Star, once we do vote on Pride Star, we're not going to have to worry about the safety of our children anymore. So with that said, I hope we vote on it tonight.
Okay. So Ms. Doherty's motion is for an amendment to the motion to approve the permission to enter. That's the way it would be, okay? If there's no further, Mr. Gendron.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a couple of other questions before we continue. I realize that there's support to move ahead with Pride Star, and I intend to support moving ahead with Pride Star. But I did have some questions that I wanted to get answered, and I want to make sure, in the same vein as Ms. Doherty's motion, that between now and the transition happens, that our kids are safe and that the transportation continues to happen. I know that we had received a letter from SPNR suggesting that they were going to terminate support at the first of the year. And there was also questions about the bond. I don't know how much we can talk about that here on the floor, but I need to know, are we going to be able to continue with SPNR through the February vacation if that's the date? And what about the bond, which is basically our insurance policy?
Thank you, Mr. Gendron. I had a discussion with the city solicitor today to sum it up, and we have been talking before as well. And the city solicitor assured me that as soon as the school committee makes up their mind which way they want to go, to communicate back to her, and she will immediately start discussion with them for a smooth transition and holding them accountable as per contract, that they have to continue servicing the city to the last day, which if it is determined to be just the day before school vacation in February, so that's the day she would like to hold them accountable. Furthermore, she would address your need, your question, which is addressing, because that was a requirement in the contract, to request from them that until the day that they stop being our provider, they're held accountable for every letter in that contract. And as far as the bond issue or not, that's really a city issue because the bond goes to the city. The city solicitor is aware of it. She's working with their attorney to act, and I don't want to quote her in here, but just very briefly, that this is something she's working on, and she, as far as she's concerned, it's part of the contract. They're obligated to supply, to give us such assurances.
Okay, so that sounds great, except in my understanding, the bond is sort of our leverage to make sure that happens, so they don't just walk out on us. Do we have funds that provide us leverage like a bond would?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's the only leverage because again, we're falling into the legal territory, and I think the city solicitor knows that, and she intends to hold them accountable, bond or no bond, because the contract says they have to have a bond.
Okay.
So, and I know she's been already in discussion with their attorney.
Okay, so one of the reasons we didn't vote on it in the last meeting is because of this issue and the fact that, you know, we were concerned about our leverage to make certain that SP&R continued their job until we were able to make a smooth transition. You seem like you're not concerned that would be a problem.
I'm not concerned. SP&R they don't service only Lowell, they service other communities, and I'm not sure, I don't think, he's a businessman, and as any businessman in any company, they're gonna make sure that, you know, one little hiccup is not gonna hurt their entire business.
Okay.
So I doubt very seriously that they're going to not comply with the contract, because that's gonna hurt them with the other customers, the other communities.
All right, well, I'll put my confidence in your confidence then in that regard.
Thank you.
I feel compelled, since this issue has been batted around for several weeks now, I feel compelled to kind of explain my position here. It was kind of thrust upon us because of the incident that Mr. Hoey made reference to, and certainly that was a horrible incident, but it turns out that there's been many more incidents, not quite as horrible and nothing that made the front page of the newspaper, but it sounds like there's a long line of issues that we've had to deal with as a community with SP&R and our special needs transportation. In fact, there were many cases, as we've learned, where they just didn't do the job, and we had to pay more money to hire folks like NRT or Pride Star to fill in for them when they didn't show up. So this is a serious problem, and I think it makes sense for, as Mr. Hoey said, us to stand strong and make a change here. So I completely support that. And we were offered a couple of different options here. One was to go with NRT, which is the provider that provides our main transportation, our main bus transportation in the city. The other was with Pride Star, and the third was to go out to bid. I initially, in fact, I even voted for a motion to go out to bid initially, but as this discussion and analysis went on, I decided that for me personally, was not a good option, because I think it's time. The more I learned about the situation with SP&R, I think we just need to move on, and move on as quickly as possible to another provider. So I eliminated that option. The second was NRT, which is our current transportation provider. They provide us, I think, a bid that was had a reduced costs associated with it, so it was very attractive to us for that reason. And the third was Pride Star, and the thing that I like the most about Pride Star is while the maximum that we will pay them is a little bit more than what we're getting from the offer we're getting from NRT, it seems that there's great flexibility in their offer, so that by managing the routes differently, we have the power ourselves to save the city money, perhaps even more than we could have with the NRT bid. There's also this software tracking that I think is very appealing to me and interesting. In fact, I'd like to make sure that gets put into the contract that we go forward with, because that is going to enable not only the district, but parents to be able to track where their kids are and where their kids' buses are. So I think that's important. The other thing I really liked about the Pride Star bid is that Pride Star is an ambulance company. They specialize in high care transportation. So rather than a bus company moving to a higher care transportation service, we have a high care transportation service moving into a volume provider, if you will, of high care transportation. I really like that angle, and I think that's going to be good for our special needs kids. The company's locally owned, and probably the thing that really sealed it for me is it brings another competitor into the bus industry in our district. Sometimes if you only have one option, you're kind of, your hands are tied, and you can be charged a lot more than maybe what is appropriate. So I think bringing another competitor into this mix really makes Pride Star the best option. So I've given this a lot of thought. I've really analyzed the situation, and in my opinion, Pride Star is probably our best option. So I intend to support that motion going forward.
Thank you. Any further discussion, Mr. Gignac?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to add on to some of the comments that were made this evening, I'm happy to support Pride Star moving forward, and I think it comes down to high quality and specialized care that they're going to be able to provide us. And the testimonials that we've received via email and the speakers at our last meeting really put it over the edge where I think we're really going to be happy with them moving forward, and it's an area that we haven't addressed, the district hasn't addressed in a very long time. We've had the same provider for a long time, and I think we're taking action tonight to move us in the right direction, and I think we will be happy with them, and I'm happy to support it.
Any further discussion? If not, roll call on the amendment.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Any discussion on the motion to approve permission to enter as amended? Hearing none, roll call.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Next, under memorials, we have one memorial for William C. McLeod, father of Claire Golis, the daily school teacher. Next, under motions, we have one motion by Ms. Doherty, request that the superintendent provide the committee with a report on the professional development activities conducted throughout the district on November 7, 2017. Second by Mr. Gendron. Ms. Doherty.
Thank you. I think the motion pretty much speaks for itself. Just looking to see how we use this day, the election day, for professional development for our staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. Next, under reports of the superintendent, the first one is a response to Mr. Hoey's motion of May 3rd, 2017 regarding a task force for new maintenance agreement and the indirect costs. Any discussion on that, Mr. Hoey?
No, I'd like to just say thank you. And I know this is something needed. The past 2 days, I visited a half a dozen schools. I walked into the Riley, well, outside the Riley, but I talked to the principal, and they had one room, one kindergarten room with no heat. The Sullivan School was really good. The Butler has a boiler that's down. And that's just a few visits. I went with Mr. Gignac down to the high school, and we had a meeting with, we didn't have a meeting, but we met Mr. Underwood there. And I'm surprised he's here tonight. I figured he'd be sleeping. I know how hard the guy's been working on the heating problems. I also know what we need to get our heat fixed. And the city's having a hard time with money right now. But I think after listening to Mr. Underwood, and I feel real strongly about this, he feels he needs about $60,000. And he's here to explain why he thinks he needs that amount of money to get all your heat going at the high school. I don't want to say too much. I know this week I think he spent maybe around 11 grand. And there's been heating problems down there, there's no doubt. The heating, the gym is tough. And back in the locker rooms, there's no heat and it's cold and people are walking around with their coats on. But that indirect cost thing that we've all talked about, I think you have to listen to Mr. Underwood right now. Right now, I don't think there's anybody that knows more about the issue than him. And I am a contractor, and I think if any of you have any questions, he's here tonight. That's the guy to talk to. But this report on maintenance of effort, to me, is great. I just wish we push it a little faster. But I'm still happy. I'm really happy, and thank you all of you for working on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Your Honor. So a couple of things jumped out at me regarding the memorandum of agreement, and specifically, I think it's a great idea that we've got this task force together that's going to be working with the city. But I had two motions, it's almost exactly a year ago today, that relate to this. One was regarding the nurses, which my motion was to look at a plan to bring the nurses over to our side, since we're being charged off for them anyway, and they're not being compensated at a competitive wage. We're losing them to the other districts. So I just wanted to kind of bring that back up to the forefront. And then the other motion I had was to get the school committee facility subcommittee to meet with the city council subcommittee. And as my colleagues may recall, that meeting did happen last November. I think it was the end of November or early November, about a year ago. I'd like to keep that going as well. I know you've got the task force, but I think that when the city leaders get together and talk about it, and it's televised, and the community knows, what the issues are that we're working with, we're able to move more quickly. I think that we did see an influx of commitment from the city to try to deal with some of these issues, which, as Mr. Hoey mentions, it's not just the high school that has heating issues. There's many schools. And I would love, since Mr. Underwood is here, if he could give us an update on what's happening at the high school. But I really think that, maybe at the next meeting or in a couple of weeks or whatever time frame the superintendent feels is convenient, we need to get a full report about what's happening in terms of heat in all our schools, because we're moving into that season now, and we need to really be proactive as much as we can. So I know that's a couple of comments, but I really do think that we need to have a concerted focus as a committee and keep reaching out to the council to deal with these maintenance issues and to really move forward, not just with one building, but with all our buildings. Thank you.
If there's, Mr. Gendron.
I was just going to suggest that, as the chair of the facility subcommittee, that we schedule before our next school committee meeting a joint meeting between the city council and school committee facility subcommittee to get a status from Mr. Underwood on the maintenance issues, including the heating issues in the school, and a plan for addressing those outstanding problems.
Okay. I would tell everybody, in case you don't know, the city council did pass a motion last evening asking that the city manager and that the school department come up with a maintenance schedule, and that be provided to the city council and the school committee in September rather than on the first cold day in November, so that going forward we'll know at the beginning of the school year that all of the schools, that the heating systems and the major building systems for that matter in all of the schools are good to go. But Mr. Gignac, did you want to hear from Mr. Underwood first?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Underwood, could you give us an update on where we stand with the high school and maybe an overview on the other schools as
Absolutely.
well?
Good evening, everybody. So the high school right now, we're working through the troubles here. When we woke up, first of all, I'd like to start by saying there was no intent to misinform everybody on the status of our heat that day. And I know that in the paper it made it sound like we were kind of trying to fudge the truth. What actually happened was we knew we had a problem with the heating system at the 22 building in the Freshman Academy, which is served by the steam plant, and it wasn't a problem. We were having work done on the chimney. So we knew that that boiler was not going to work until Wednesday morning. We also knew that it was going to be very cold Thursday. That boiler did not come online until late Wednesday afternoon. So by the time everybody left for school that day, I think it was just their perception that there was not going to be any heat for that following Thursday. So when we woke up that morning on Thursday, very early, the first thing I seen was Fox 25 out in front of Lowell High School. So I immediately went to the 22 building of Freshman Academy. I wasn't even thinking about the 1980s building because I didn't know we had a problem there until the heat actually went on. So when I did the quick walkthrough of the Freshman Academy in the 1920s too, and then a quick walk through the high school, the 1980s building, I made a call to the superintendent and to the city manager, and I said, we have heat, and I also told the TV cameras that. It was not my intent to misinform them. It's just that I wasn't aware of the problems because they were in hidden areas. They were in the gymnasium, they were in the locker rooms, they were in the classrooms. The hallways in 90% of the school itself had heat. It was just a couple, there was 2 units on the roof that were not working, but they serviced a good portion of that building as far as classrooms was. So it ended up, we had 14 classrooms that did not have heat, the TV studio, the library, the gymnasium, which also feeds the locker rooms downstairs. And that was due to a couple of different reasons. We had 2 units that were actually broken, and then we had a communications failure that with the software that actually talks to the boilers themselves. So, bringing us back to today, we've got heat in the library. I'm sorry, we have heat in the gymnasium, the locker rooms, the cafeteria, some of the classrooms. Right now, we have about 8 classrooms that are running with minimal heat, and we have temperatures somewhere around 69 degrees in all of the classrooms. The library and the TV studios still have some pretty cold rooms that have no heat at all, but they're running in the low 60s because the rooms outside of those in the hallways have heat. We'll continue to work on that. Tomorrow's gonna be a tough day because of the rain, so we probably won't be able to get back up on that roof. I have technicians coming back Friday, and we'll be addressing those library areas and the TV studios. But right now, you know, and the other thing, this is not unusual. We've been going through this for a long time at the high school, and if you talk to some of the teachers, and actually any of the teachers, we've had heating problems there for years. So what we really want to do now is, while we've got everybody looking at the school, you know, it's a big topic right now, this is the time to address it. You know, I've met with the software engineers that designed the building, I mean, the heating system in 2009. We haven't had any software updates to that system in almost that whole time. And then what happens when you lose communication to a unit, there's many ways to manipulate that unit to get it to run. You jump out the controls, you jump out the software thing, and that's what we've been doing for many years now. So when you go up there now, you open up thing and there's wires disconnected, there's software jumped out, there's, you know, they manipulate them to run. Not that it's wrong, you do what you have to do to get heat at the building at the time, but then that ends up staying like that. So what we really need to do now, and I know Mr. Hoey, and I appreciate that, mentioned the funds we need now, is we really need to gather as a school committee, as a city council, and get the funds that we need to get that thing running the way it is, because there's also a cost savings if it does run correctly. And you know, last year I can remember days at a time where DPW employees were going to specific rooms, going up on the roof, room's too hot, disconnect the heating system. Gets too cold, turn it back on. They were actually going back and forth to some of those classrooms on a daily schedule. You know, gets too hot, turn it on, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Same with the air conditioning. So we really need to address this now before it gets any worse. But I think we'll be in good shape for Friday. We may be a little bit cold still tomorrow in a couple of areas, but I'd say 98% of that building is warm.
So, if I could, are you saying that the only place in the high school right now does not have heat is the library and the TV studio?
Yeah, and a couple of rooms that are running in the mid-60s, you know, 68, 67 degrees. But I want to say that very cautiously too. We worked on that system all day the other day, had everything working pretty well. We had 2 different technicians from Train. And when I say Train is the model of the units that are up there. They're the brand name. So we had technicians specifically from that company up there working on it. We worked our way through to the point where we had almost everything running on the computers. Yesterday we got there and we actually went backwards. The place was cold again. We had lost communications with the systems again. So as they were saying, it's a very fragile system because it has gone through so many. It's like your computer. Every time you have to reboot it, you take the chance of you losing a little bit of memory. So every time over years, every time we've been rebooting the system and manipulating it, you lose a little bit of information, you lose a bit of information. And what happened to a couple of those units was it completely forgot what it was doing. And that's the way they explain it to me. And you gotta remember, I'm not an HVAC tech, you know, where I'm spending all this time on that roof trying to learn that system. It's a very sophisticated and very complicated system. It's not like the ones you have at your house where you have a thermostat, it goes on, it goes off. It's very complicated systems with many different components up there, and it needs to be taken care of, and it needs the money to keep it up. So if we want to get back to where we want to be, it's going to be some money.
And are you thinking that by Friday, by the end of the day on Friday, will that be at 100%?
I certainly hope so. I mean, I told the parents the other night, and I'll tell you tonight, I will be on that roof with the technicians until it gets fixed. Again, they're telling me that we could probably do it today. It was supposed to have some heavy rain tomorrow, so the 2 technicians, they're not gonna work on the roof in the rain. We could probably have done it tomorrow. So, you know, it's my belief and my thought that we'll be in good shape for Friday.
Can you speak to the other schools throughout the district?
And that's it, you know, it's great that we have the parents involved in what goes on at the high school, but, you know, it's been going on a long time. We have these same problems in many of the other schools, as you know, and as Mr. Hoey said, you know, not as bad, but there's classrooms in pockets of areas all over the place because there's check valves and everybody has their temperature a little bit different. So you have different check valves in different classrooms that control those things. Check valves go, that may not be getting steam to that radiator. So we're constantly doing, you know, repairs to schools. I don't think there's a school in the district that has no issues. I know that, you know, we allocated some money last year. Some of that work has been completed, some of it hasn't been. They're still working on the Rogers School boilers. They're still got some work to do at the Robinson School. We have a little bit of work to do at the Wayne School still. That work is started, but it's ongoing. Although they just replaced 4 boilers at the Merkland School, so I'll take that back. The Merkland School is probably running perfect. Those are brand new boilers over there. I don't have a specific for all the different schools. One, I didn't know I was coming here tonight until everything happened, you know, the last few days, and I really haven't had any time to put anything together in the last couple of days for today's meeting. I apologize. But I will get a report for you next time we come.
Okay, Mr. Dakota.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The $65,000, that number that's been put out, what do you anticipate that will pay for? And will that be just for the high school, or is that for the whole system?
That's just for the high school, and that's just software updates. They gave me 2 quotes. One was for a full systems upgrade. It was $197,000. And I told him, I said, well, I can tell you right now, that ain't gonna happen. Yeah. So what we did is we sat down, we broke it down to what they thought we could get away with to get the system running so we can actually communicate it with it. When I say communicate with it, there's a computer software program that you're looking on there. It's called the Summit Tracer System. And what that does is when you go on that program, you can go into each individual rooms, look at the set points, change the temperatures if you're too cold. So, so you have the Summit system downstairs. You have what's called a BCU upstairs. I love when I throw acronyms. It makes me feel smart. I'm learning them all this week. BCU, building control units, that's upstairs. And then you have a VCC units up in the individual units. So they all talk to each other. And they have a fail-safe on them so that when we do lose communications, those units are supposed to go into what they call default settings. And those default settings just run constantly without making any changes. What happened the other day when we lost communications is it's been so long since the upgrades, is the way they explained it to me, it's been so long that that system just actually forgot what to tell it. So it stopped working. And, you know, we tried to manipulate it. You know, DPW was up there on the roof with us at first before we called training. We were trying to manipulate it, bypass this, change that. We didn't have no luck. So that's when we called training to come in and give us a hand looking at it. They will not look to said, hey, you know, for $32,000, we can do this, what they called a front-end alignment. It's closer like your car. But they would do all the controls on what we thought we needed to be able to control the units there without getting into, you know, every single thing. For $197,000, they replace everything. For $32,000, they can replace, like I said, the front end of all of the stuff. They believe, and I have to listen to them, they're the experts, not me, that will give us what we need. And then the rest of the money, I would figure we're gonna need for some controls, because once we do get communications with that, we're gonna have to go back into those units, find out what was jumped out, what was manipulated to get them running before the computers. So I wanted a little bit of leeway for parts and stuff like that. This type of repairs are very expensive. We're paying these guys $1,700 a day to come in and work on that roof. You know, so we've had, you know, Monday, Thursday, Friday, today, yesterday. You know, so it gets expensive very quick. So if we're going to do it, let's get the quote. We'll do it all at once, and we're not paying them by the day to just come in there and kind of troubleshoot things. So, you know.
Mr. Dakota, you all set?
Yeah.
Further discussion? Ms. Martin?
Thank you. Just looking at this past MOU, going back through all the kind of the details of it, So as I'm reading this, so basically the term reported means that the city has paid it, and yet but it will count towards our net school spending. Okay, just the terminology. So when we look at like school security services and the changes that have happened over the course of time, I mean, wouldn't the auditor have had a concern when we were paying directly for our school resource officers? Because wouldn't this say that the city would be paying that? I know we just made that change, bringing them back to the city, but over the course of time, we've absorbed that direct cost.
Right. This fiscal year report is for the last school year.
Mm-hmm.
And so going forward, you won't see a direct charge for the secure police officers or the secure SROs, using an acronym. That will be on an indirect cost, will be paid by the city, counting towards net school spending.
Okay. So we've corrected it.
Going forward, it will correct
It
itself.
will go back to what this originally said in 2009. Okay. My other question, just in looking at, on page 2, there's the listing of the operation and maintenance of school facilities. And it
Yes.
lists out a couple different ones, understanding the staffing, that whole package with the work order system, and then snow and ice removal and trash removal and recycling. And it just brought up for me the question that had come up during our budget deliberations regarding water and sewer charges that we're paying directly from the school department budget. Shouldn't that be included in this? I know we had a conversation about it when we went through the budget. 'Cause
Right.
I don't ever remember seeing it before.
Right.
Which doesn't mean anything, but it had struck me this year that seemed like something that should be included right in this area.
Right. What's going to happen is we are going to get reimbursed for those costs from our food service revolving fund.
100% for water and sewer will come from that?
Yeah, and it's based upon the indirect cost of a percentage of the utilities for heat and gas and electricity. So we're taking a portion of those expenses, getting reimbursed on our side, and the only utilities we pay is for water and sewer directly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why the credit is going against the water and sewer account.
Mm-hmm. But it's the revolving food services fund that's actually paying that?
Right, exactly.
But if it was being paid for as part of this, as part of school maintenance, we would then have the opportunity with our food services funding to spend that money in another way.
You are right, Mrs. Martin.
Okay.
Yes, Ms. Martin, because I do not know the answer to your question as to why the auditor had not, flagged it
Yeah.
before. They should have flagged it. But I do know that when we started talking about this, that's actually what got me to talk about this, is that I noticed that we are paying a lot of the charges that in other cities and towns are handled through the indirect costs.
Mm-hmm.
So now that we know, and we started the discussion, we will be bringing all of these into
So we'll be able
their
to include
attention.
both
We
the
should-
water
yes.
sewer
We should be
question
able
as
to
well.
do that. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Ms. Marsden?
Yes, on the heating issue, students have noticed a big difference between last week. Last week, it was real uncomfortable, and it's hard to kind of focus in class when you're sitting in a freezing room. But we do appreciate everything that the task crews have done to fix the heating problem, and we're looking forward to having 100% warm classrooms. So thank you, Mr. Underwood.
Okay. Ms. Doherty?
On that note, I'm wondering, do we need to make a request to the city to provide the funding for that software upgrade? How should we handle that? Is that something we should do tonight?
I don't think you need to do that. I think that will just happen without, if you want to request it, you can, but I don't think you need to do that. I think that the city will spend that money to do that.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I had a conversation with the city officials today regarding this, the 32,000 portion. So they're most likely will pay for the 32,000. It's got to be approved by the city manager, but I had discussions with the CFO today. And then certainly the additional 30,000 that Mr. Underwood is talking about, we'll present that for payment to be made by the city. So that's in the works to your question.
Thank you. And I appreciate that the attention and the quick turnaround with the high school, but as Mr. Underwood mentioned, there are many other schools. I got I don't know if you saw the email we got through the website about the Washington school being freezing cold. So I really do want to, if we could try to come up with as Mr. Gendron mentioned, some kind of meeting, getting us together and really looking at the report that Mr. Underwood's able to provide to really prioritize heat for all our schools this winter.
Thank you. Mr. Gignac.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question for the superintendent or Mr. Frisch. So regarding specifically operation and maintenance of school facilities, do we audit those costs, or do we just take the total that they give us? Do we have any detail?
Yes, they provide the detail for us in the general ledger. And then we can, if we see something, we can ask.
Okay. So you could pull that right in Munis.
Right. So we do have we do receive a binder which is about this thick, and that has all the detail behind the charges.
And we're only charged when a work order is completed or signed off by a school department official?
They charge us for the time that they spent.
Right.
So their law contains the time that they spent there. So it's answering your question is not easy. I mean, yeah, on an accounting basis, it's easy to say, yes, we have the ledger to do that. But do we really do have the ability to audit exactly what the worker did? As you and I would know it if we were to hire somebody for our home.
Right.
We agree on a price, and you're going to sign off only when the problem is solved. No, we do not do that. So we get a ledger to say this is what our workers in the city have worked on. This is what it costs. You guys can look at this anytime you want, but in some cases maybe it could be that the problem was never solved or the problem was solved. It's really hard for us to go back a year later and try to figure out exactly what happens. I would love to see a system that works where city or not, or vendor, that we would have a check off by the principals to say, yes, this problem was resolved.
And if I could, I think there's language in this existing MOU that basically says that. So it says that the figure shall be, that figure shall be the total services completed and closed within the given fiscal year as documented in the work order system. And then later on it says by a school department employee. So I just want to make sure that whatever negotiations occur later on when I'm gone, that you include the fact that a school department employee is going to approve or accept the work that has been done. Because I know there's the work orders, if you look at the list, some of them have been going on for years and years. And I know for a fact that we've paid for some of that, even though it hasn't been closed out. So it's just in order to make sure that we're getting we're actually paying for what we're receiving, and that we're able to somewhat audit what we're paying, what we're actually receiving. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion regarding the superintendent's report on Mr. Hoey's motion? Hearing none, we'll move on to the second item, which is the second report, which is a response to Mr. Gendron's motion of May 17, 2017, regarding free LRTA transportation for Lowell High School students. We have a registered speaker.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Richmond. I'm going to preface my remarks by
Mr. Richmond,
yes, sir.
Address too. Name and address.
Okay, Jonathan Richmond, 46 Linden Street, Lowell, Mass. 01852. I'm just going to preface my remarks for those who didn't read my letter to the Sun to say that when we compare walks of 20 to 30 minutes with 15-minute warm bus rides, a choice of going to Corley wouldn't have been so bad. But what I want to do now is to quote a parent who just put a comment on one of the Facebook pages that deals with Lowell educational issues. And what's very interesting about this comment is that this is a professional parent who wasn't aware of some of the impacts of poverty and was suddenly shocked by seeing it. She wrote, 2 weeks ago, I drove to work in the pouring rain. I had just dropped my daughter and her cousins off at Lowell High School. It was raining buckets. There were kids walking from Chelmsford Street. They had lanyards. They were walking to the high school. No umbrella, no raincoats, and completely drenched. Can any of you ever imagine how those children learned that day? Cold and soaking wet. Could you imagine working that way or letting your child attend school that way? Most of the parents I know wouldn't allow that because we have the means to prevent that. Now, the key thing about this is that she's suddenly recognizing something she didn't know before, that there were kids that are deeply affected by poverty. And I think one of the issues for the school committee and the school district is to have more recognition of the deep and wounding poverty that affects a lot of the kids on a daily basis. I think that there is a need for overall reform of bus transportation for Lowell High School, assuming it is staying in the downtown area. It's complicated given the congestion, and it's also complicated by the fact that the LRTA is currently pretty well at full capacity. Also, many of the services in the morning do not go directly past the high school, but they go to the Kennedy Center. So it's not a convenient service, and I think at some point we're going to have to face up to the need of a purpose-designed school bus service that addresses the deep needs we have here. I would say that providing bus passes on LRTA is an appropriate short-term measure. But I don't think it should have any restrictions. In fact, I think it's cruel to suggest that it's okay for kids to walk for more than a mile outside the months of January to March. I mean, what is it? 31st of March, the kids are on the bus, and then the 1st of April, those who can't pay for it are walking. I find that problematic. I think it's equally problematic to take an arbitrary 1 mile definition. What about kids who have to walk 3/4 of a mile in atrocious weather when professional parents would never allow their kids to do this? And this is the point, that many of these children do not have parents in a position to get them to school or even to guide them. In many cases, the parents may even have left the home before they leave. The kids are very much on their own. I've seen some extraordinary kindness around. I'm friends with one Cambodian family, and they take a Hispanic, a neighbor's kid to school each day so that he doesn't have to suffer in these ways. But many families cannot cope with daily life, let alone money for bus passes. And their kids, unfortunately, will go out in the cold, often insufficiently dressed, unless there is another option. So I'd suggest everyone just thinks about it in terms of what they would do for their own kids, do to others as you would do to yourself. You wouldn't want your own kids to go out and get frozen and sick. So try to help families who are unfortunately not in a position to avoid this, to get their kids to school. So in summary, I think we need to start planning for comprehensive school bus service reform. But for now, I think there's a need to hold discussions with the LRTA on increasing capacity. It's not just going to suddenly happen. This really needs to be done so that more kids can be transported, and find a way to offer free bus passes to any family that requests them and without any restriction. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion regarding the superintendent's report in response to Mr. Gendron's motion? Mr. Gendron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The intent of this motion, brought up several months ago, was to try to provide bus transportation to any child that didn't have it or didn't have transportation down to Lowell High School. We had some subcommittee meetings, and some teachers talked about some of their students who had to walk in the freezing cold 2 miles to school because they literally couldn't afford $20 bus pass that month. So this is the intent, to try to address that situation. The goal would be to do this for everybody in the high school, but under the budget restrictions that we're under, and especially this year where we already have a set budget, I had asked the superintendent if he could come up with a plan that would address the major problem. And I think that this is a good idea. I think that starting by looking at kids who are outside a certain radius from the high school during the winter months would be a good idea. we don't know how many requests we're going to get for these passes. I suspect that, we'll get less than we think. In which case, I hope that maybe we can be more lenient with those restrictions. Maybe we can extend into April, or maybe we can reduce the radius from the high school in which we allow it. So hopefully we can, we'll start this, see how it goes, and then flex with it as time goes on. And then next year, hopefully we can look to institute a situation where any kid that needs a bus pass to get to Lowell High School can have it. We're lucky to have the LRTA here in Lowell. It's an asset for us, and we should be leveraging it. We are leveraging it, but I think we can leverage it even more. So that's my feeling on it. Thank you for the report. My question would be, do we need to do some type of a budget transfer or something to address this, or is there, Mr. Frisch is raising his hand over here, so if it's okay with you, Mr. Mayor, we'll let him respond. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Gendron. I do have one correction that I need to state. I passed out a revised report. When I said 1 mile for the $65,000 budget for 1,100 students, it's really 1.5 miles. So the same dollar, 65,000, but it was 1.5 miles. And that's the same radius we use for middle school. We bus after 1.5 miles at the middle school. So with that just one change from 1 mile to 1.5 miles, and just keep in mind that the 65,000 is an estimate. Well, let's reevaluate at the end of the year, and then we'll be in a better position to come up with a new recommendation for the following year. So this is like a pilot, and we'll see how this flows.
Very good. What about the budgetary, do we need to make a transfer to a different line item, or is there a line item that's appropriate that we can just tap into?
No, I'll be making a budget transfer recommendation.
In a subsequent meeting?
In a subsequent meeting.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mr. Gignac.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This $20 bus pass is for every day of the month, not like all access. Have we had conversations with the LRTA to perhaps offer a school-only bus pass that works Monday through Friday or at a different rate?
We've put in calls to LTRA. We haven't mentioned that, but it's certainly a good idea. Would that be, to your point, would that be less than $20?
Right, and then we could offer it longer.
Yeah, so
more kids.
be happy to inquire about that.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Doherty.
I think that we're all aware that we really need to look at transportation overall. We need to look at our zoning, we need to look at how we can do it more efficiently, not just the LRTA piece, but the whole regular education transportation. Because I'm shocked to hear that the middle school's 1.5 miles. I thought it was 3/4 of a mile. Anybody that lived over 3/4 of a mile got regular ed busing. Are you saying it's a 1.5 miles for a middle school student?
We do bus middle school, but I think there are some middle school that we don't bus, the older kids, and so I have to, until they're 1.5 miles, that was what I was told.
Maybe that number has changed from when I remember it. But that just seems a very long distance for a middle school child to not be eligible for a bus unless he lives 1.5 miles away or more. But as I said, we're not in the transportation business, but we need to be looking at transportation overall. I totally support Mr. Gendron's motion here with trying to help kids get to school who have a long walk, especially in the winter months. And I think one other option we could be looking at to expand that scope is, instead of just offering it just in terms of distance, but anybody who has demonstrated need, but that might be more complicated, I don't know. But for now, I'm totally in support of doing this, and I guess we'll look for your recommendation of where you would find the funds. Because right now, that's the issue. Where we're going to come up with $65,000 that we hadn't budgeted for.
Right, and I'll be bringing that at the next school committee meeting if this passes.
Thank you. This is a really great motion being put forward. I think this is a really good start to offering free bus passes, but ultimately I think myself and other Lowell High School students would like it to be more inclusive if the budget allows for more students who live in a closer proximity to the high school. I mean, so many students are coming in and out of the high school all the time. A lot of students are coming back. We're all aware that it gets a lot colder at nighttime. And for kids, I mean, 3/4 of a mile is a long walk in 30-degree weather. So I think ultimately I'd like to see this get to a more inclusive radius. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If we could physically afford it, I would opt for the larger cost for the whole school year instead of just the 3 winter months. But I question the 20-minute equivalent of a walk. I've seen kids walk, and there's no way they're going to walk a mile in 20 minutes. It's going to take a lot longer than that. So I think the walk time frame, I think, is a little bit off in terms of how much time do they actually spend having to walk to school, and then add into that mix bad weather, snow, ice, non-shoveled sidewalks, and the like. So I think we should be offering this for the whole year anyway. But I know fiscally we can't afford it. It wouldn't be practical this year anyway. But it's a start, and I agree. It's a great start. Thank you.
Yes, we did, Mr. Mayor. There was approximately 2,000 students qualified for a mile. So, yes. So you're looking at essentially double the 65. If you did it for a mile, it would be, yes.
Did you do it for less than a mile?
No.
Okay. Are you going to be able to look into Mr. Gignak's suggestion that you contact the LRTA about seeing if we can do a restricted bus pass? That seems like a great idea.
Yeah, I'll definitely ask, and we'll see what they say.
Is that something we can get for like the next meeting, do you think?
Oh, definitely, I will, yeah.
Any further discussion, Mr.
Thank you, Your Honor. I can't hear you that well. I don't know if it's just me. But I just wanted to...
I forgot to turn it back on. How about now?
I want to just mention something that Mr. Nutter just told me, that our current policy is for K to 4, they have to live 3/4 of a mile, and 5 to 8, 1.5 miles to qualify for a bus pass. And apparently, that's better than the state requirements. But it still seems like a long distance, especially think about a first grader walking 3/4 of a mile in January. And just in terms of the student bus pass, I believe that $20 rate is the discounted rate. But it would be worth checking up with them, but I think that is considered the student bus pass.
Right.
Just wanted to add that to the mix.
If we can work a deal where with the volume that we're purchasing, who knows? It's never...
Oh, it's definitely worth.
Never wrong to ask for a lower cost.
Right.
Any further discussion regarding this report? Hearing none, we'll move on to the enrollment projection. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move on to the...
Don't we need to vote on whether we want to move forward with this? Because Mr. Frisch is going to recommend where we'll get the money. Shouldn't we vote if we want to move forward with this?
Well, December's coming up, yeah.
This was just going to be a budget transfer that was just going to happen.
We haven't got it budgeted, we're gonna
I
need
think
to.
it will come up at the next meeting, right?
He's going to
Is that what
propose a
you're
budget
planning on?
transfer at the next meeting.
Did you need a vote this evening?
I agree with Ms. Doherty that it would be nice to have a affirmative from the school community. I see everyone's nodding, but just for the record.
I would vote to,
Take a vote. Vote to take.
to move forward with providing LRT TA transportation buses for high school students within the required range.
Second by Mr. Gendron. Discussion. All in favor? All opposed? So voted.
It has to be.
Roll call.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Next, enrollment projection. Is there any discussion regarding enrollment projection? Hearing none, the next is a response to Mayor Kennedy's motion of March 1st regarding parking spots for veterans at Lowell Public Schools. Any discussion? Here, Mr. Gignac.
Just one question. Did you intend to, I thought you intended to have parking spots at all the schools.
The Veterans Commission requested a parking spot at every school. I think there are a lot of schools where that's just not feasible.
So this is just
One
first
that
step.
comes up to mind immediately is the McAvenue, where parking is at a premium there, the way it is now. So that to dedicate a parking spot for that purpose just isn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any further discussion? If not, we'll move on to item 7.5, the superintendent's report regarding the response to Ms. Martin's motion of November 9th regarding the status of the state of operations at the Robinson Middle School. Any discussion? Ms. Martin?
Could we have a report, a verbal report, just to summarize what we were provided with?
Mr. Superintendent?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yes, we, as you know, we just hired a new team, leadership team in the Robinson. Both principal and assistant principals were new, and this was one of the schools that was bordering, the levels between 3. It was always 3, but really scared of going 4. So we decided to put a great deal of attention to try to see where the problems are, resolve them, and hopefully get into a better place. I've spent myself there the better part of a week where I moved my office there to try to get to know exactly what's going on and spent a lot of time with the teachers, attended several common planning time meetings, and seen from myself, what's going on in the cafeteria, the hallways, classrooms, and I dispatched our team. I asked my 2 assistants to co-lead an effort to resolve this. We agreed to do several interventions, and I'm going to ask Deputy Durkin and Assistant Superintendent Desmond to present some of the changes that we've made and some of the interventions we've done.
So thank you, Mrs. Superintendent. As far as from the Office of Student Support Services, we have district support specialists who support all of our schools. That one particular district support specialist is going to provide targeted assistance, actually already has begun providing very specific assistance to the Robinson School administrative team, serving in the capacity of a team member to help support that team. Additionally, our attendance monitor and officer are supporting, have been working with the team to establish a solid attendance team that will look at the attendance at the school, because that is an area that we've identified that really needs some focus area. Additionally, the district support specialists will be working with the school's positive behavioral intervention and support team to augment their work as they go out to DESE and get trained, and to keep the momentum going in the school around that initiative. And lastly, she's going to work with the PBIS coaches, which she does district-wide, but monitor that progress as well. Also, our district attendance team has developed a Google Doc that they're going to be, they showed it to me. It's amazing. It highlights students who right away are not showing up to school. They've actually created that for every school in the district. And they'll be identifying, working with the team and identifying interventions to get students back into school very soon, rather than waiting to find out that, you know, the students miss way too many days, and now we're trying to catch up with their education. So those are some of the supports that from the Office of Student Support Services. I'll turn it over to Ms. Desmond to speak about the curriculum pieces.
Thank you, Deputy Durkin. From the curriculum end, we have teamed up with the Department of Ed through a competitive turnaround grant. The Department of Ed has offered high-needs school systems the opportunity to apply for turnaround funds for level 3 schools. In the past, it used to be only available for level 4 schools. So the funding is not as great as was provided for level 4 schools in the past, but it's a significant amount. So we will be using that funding to support best practices, best turnaround practices, and improve student learning outcome practices with the teachers and the leadership team at the school. We have had several initial meetings with our Department of Ed turnaround representative who has come into the district, Deputy Durkin, myself, the leadership team at the Robinson School, which is made up of the building-based administrators, building-based special ed team, special education team, and some teacher leaders to talk about ways to improve best practices there. We've also from the curriculum standpoint, have had the curriculum coordinators out there 1 day a week for the entire school day, providing targeted professional development in the content areas for that day during academic CPTs, which is directly provided to the teachers during their common planning time. Along with that, we, as a district, and I provided the documentation back in at the end of August around the mentoring program that we were providing because we had so many new leaders in our district. And so that program is also being implemented at the Robinson School, and the mentor principal is Mr. Matt Stahl from the Wang School, and he has spent a significant amount of time there recently mentoring the new team, because it is a new team, both principal and vice assistant principal. So he has been there mentoring them as well.
Yes.
I'm sorry, not to be remiss. I did, additionally, the special ed department has identified a team to work with the special education teachers after school hours to support them in providing instructional strategies to students who have various needs at the building level. Also securing some special education staff to support them in Project Read training, reviewing all IEPs with the team so that they can ensure that the targeted assistance is provided to the students. And additionally, just as a district support specialist is doing the, one of the special ed assistants is working directly with the Robinson School administrative team and their special ed team to support them to strategize how to best support students and their families.
In addition to that, if I may add, that we've also used some of the fundings available through us through the turnaround funding, some of the grants, and we hired a temporary security guard that we made sure that the person they send us is trained in child restraint, because we're dealing with children. This security guard works mostly at the beginning. We want to make sure that the drop-off, we've heard a lot of complaints of drop-offs at the buses and arrival of kids. So that's one more adult of an authority figure that's there, and also during dismissal. And in between, this person also is roaming the hallways to make sure that there are no kids roaming around hallways unless they have a pass justified to go from one place to another. So this is a temporary measure. Of course, we're going to try to, the goal here is really to try to change a little bit the culture of the school. And the reason we brought one of our veteran and successful principal, Mr. Stoll, is obviously working in some of the schools. It's working well. So the idea is how do we get the culture to change here so it can start working the same way as it works well in the Wang School or the Daly School, for that matter. So today, Mr. Stoll gave me a report. He spent considerable time there, I think a few weeks, and gave me a very positive report of what is happening. And I think we're on our way of doing it, making a success out of it.
Ms. Martin.
Thank you. And thank you very much for the information. I appreciate it. Just a couple quick questions. So in terms of the level 3 turnaround plan development, now, does this mean that we're basically going to be applying for this school in the next round, or that you've already received funds, that you received them kind of outside of a grant cycle, that they've already been taken in?
So this process started last year, and there was grant funding last year for level 3 schools that were in danger of perhaps going to a level 4 status.
Like the Green Elch?
Correct, yes. And so this is a continuation where we will be able to, we've been working with Joan Tuttle to do some analysis of schools that are in a level 3 status in Lowell, and trying to determine where the high needs and the high leverage areas are. And then once we've determined that, Deputy Durkin and myself have been going around with Ms. Tuttle. Once we've determined that, we will put together a plan to move forward for the rest of the year.
So we'd be looking at that to be happening in the next part, like after January?
Throughout the year, but we have been allocated the funding.
You have? Oh, okay.
Yes,
So what's the
but
total
the
turnaround
plan
funds for the
hasn't-
Robinson?
The plan hasn't been put in
Okay.
place. So there's $100,000 that has been provided to the city, to the school department for level 3 schools. So that wouldn't all specifically go to one school. That's the plan part that we have to provide, is exactly what it is based on the high leverage, high needs areas, and what we would be allocating each school.
And this is over and above what had gone to the Green Elch, which was a discrete
Yes.
grant.
Yes.
So $100,000 basically to be used against our level 3 schools across the district.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually just heard yesterday from our accountability director, Nan Murphy, who's working with Joan, that it's actually going to be a little bit more than 100. I think they're talking around maybe 140 or so. But minimum is 100, guaranteed.
So that will be happening. One of the things that had prompted this motion in the first place, as I had mentioned, was around the mentoring leadership that's going on. So is it a mentor, and the way it's being described tonight doesn't sound like what I had heard, call it fake news, whatever you want to call it. But just to be clear, the principal who is functioning at Mr. Stahl's previous school, the Pawtuckville Memorial, Pawtuckville Memorial, is still an assistant principal, is not functioning at a principal level?
Mr. Wang is, the Wang School, Mr. Stoll is going back on Monday there. So the assistant principal who was just filling in is an assistant principal there.
So there wasn't a chain of promotions with people bumping up. Again, this is what I'm hearing. So having not gotten any information from the administration, I asked for this report to find out.
That's okay.
So I'm not saying it's true. I'm asking you to just let me know.
Mr. Stoll, you still have your job. Don't worry. He's going back to it.
Okay.
Are you all set? Okay. Mr. Dakota.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's a tremendous report, and thank you so much for the report. But the one thing that kind of sticks out to me, and because it's something that I believe is really a contributing solution to issues with struggling schools, is engaging parents. And there's only one line in this whole report that even refers to parents. It's mostly staff work, this kind of work, and that kind of work. And I'd like to see that approach used a little bit more within some of these struggling schools, because you want to get success in your schools, engage those parents, get those parents involved. And I think if we don't get them to be involved. It's going to be a struggle. It's going to be uphill battle through the whole thing, trying to improve any of our struggling schools. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gignac. You good? Any further discussion? Yes, Mr.
Just before we close, I think it's worth acknowledging the staff at the Robinson School. What we've all observed is it's a very dedicated staff that is committed and wants to make the change. Mr. Stahl has reiterated that to the leadership team as well. So we want to commend them for their work and say, keep going.
Any further discussion? If not, the next report is a response to Ms. Martin's motion of September 6th regarding the status on the declaratory judgment. Any discussion? If not, we'll move on to the quarterly report on motions. Any discussion regarding the quarterly report on motions? Mr. Hoey.
Yes, I just have one thing. When I looked through this, I don't have the exact motion that I wrote. It was something about fixing or helping repair the HR office. I had a motion on that, and I don't see it in this. So it's not in here.
I will, if I may, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I will have staff review the tapes back and see if we missed
Yeah, I
any
just
motion.
don't, yeah, I
We'll make
was
sure to
asking about
include
the
it.
HR. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Ms. Martin?
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on a couple of mine. One was on page 2, number 10, the delays during the FY 17-18 budget process. I just didn't know when you had presented that on the floor. It cited that the mayor presented on the floor completed, and I don't recall that happening. So which is why I have continually asked for this motion and brought it up again and again. If you've reported and I missed it, I just wanted to know when that was so I could go back and find the answer.
Just give me 1 second.
Sure. Page 2, number 10.
Oh.
Number 10.
If you want.
It was the one regarding the budget that happened during the budget process.
Was I supposed to provide that report?
It cites that you already did it.
Mr. Mayor,
I just
if I
don't
may,
recall it.
this motion was when we were requested by the city solicitor to cancel a meeting. It was a
Right.
meeting that was called, and there were a couple of things to be covered at the meeting. One of them was a budget, another one was a contract, my own contract, and that meeting was canceled by the city solicitor, and I had asked that we do not cancel it. The city solicitor said, no, we have to cancel it because it wasn't called properly, whatever. And then I think you came up with the motion to understand, and then, Mr. Mayor, you presented at one time, which was just verbally, you had presented that you had talked to the city solicitor and you had instructed us to cancel the meeting. And I don't remember the words that, the explanation you gave exactly, but I'm pretty sure it was done, and we can, again, same thing as I said earlier, we can have the staff look through the tapes and
I would
tell you
recommend
which
it
date.
because, I mean, I asked for this again about 6 weeks ago, and it was listed as incomplete at that point. So I don't know if it happened in the last 6 weeks that you made that presentation. It doesn't sound it from
I
your
think-
explanation, so I'm not.
Sure that it was a formal presentation. I
Okay.
think that I just gave you an answer from the podium, and the answer was that the meeting had not been posted correctly. And so on the advice of the city solicitor, we, instead of going forward with the meeting, which included a public hearing at that point on the budget, the decision was made to just cancel a meeting.
That's not my recollection of how that had gone down, and it had been one of the primary concerns during the budget process, that it had the delays that were attributed to, that we weren't getting the information in a timely way, and then the meeting was just canceled, and there was no, I don't recall getting that information at that time. I'm perfectly comfortable going back to watch these meetings again, too. So,
Ms. Martin, the only recollection that I have of any report that I gave on this was what I just told you.
Okay.
And the issue there was over the way the meeting was posted. and whether or not it was posted properly. And the city solicitor had issues with the way it was posted, and so that's why the meeting was canceled. If there were other issues in addition to that, I'm not aware of those. My recollection is that the meeting was only canceled, as far as I was concerned, on the advice of the city solicitor because of the way that it was posted at that time. And it had to do with the idea that because it was budget deliberations, that it was going to be a public hearing. And so it was not posted properly as a public hearing.
But it was a subcommittee meeting. We had our public hearing.
No, I don't remember.
I would not be canceling a subcommittee meeting unless it was a committee of the whole, because I don't serve on any subcommittees.
Well, we've canceled a number of subcommittees, but in that specific case, I believe it was a finance subcommittee that was canceled.
I have never canceled.
No, if I may, Mr. Mayor, it was not a subcommittee, it was a regular committee meeting. Because I remember clearly taking the posting, because I was against on the record to cancel it. I took the posting and even sent it out to the Attorney General's office to review whether it was legal or not. And we discussed it. I discussed it at length with the city solicitor at the time, and then the city solicitor discussed it with the mayor, and we got the request to cancel it. So we canceled it. It wasn't a subcommittee, it was a regular meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll go back through and, thanks.
I don't serve on any subcommittees, so I would never cancel a subcommittee meeting since I'm never
Well,
there.
just referencing the personnel subcommittee that got canceled about, a month ago. I mean, we've certainly canceled subcommittees.
I did not cancel that meeting. Somebody, maybe the chairman of the personnel committee canceled it, but I certainly did not do that.
That's me, so I'd probably remember it. But it's okay, it got canceled, and it's certainly not germane to this issue at all.
Okay, is there any, do we have any additional? Yes, Ms. Doherty.
Sorry, I have a missing motion, and it was the one I referred to earlier. I made it exactly a year ago, November 16, 2016. It passed 6-0. Mayor, you were absent that day. But it was requesting the superintendent meet with key stakeholders to develop a plan and timeline for addressing the inequity in compensation for Lowell school nurses and the high turnover that results from it. Said plan to be presented to the school committee for review. So I was waiting for that one. If it was presented, I don't know how I could have missed it. But I just want to get that back on the books because I think that we do need to look at the nursing situation. And I know I dropped one with the report card, so I'm not infallible here, but this was a real motion and it's not on the quarterly reports at all as being completed or whatever. So I would like to, we're going to be looking at the memorandum of agreement. That's part of what the task force is going to be doing. So I want to bring this back up, that we need to look at our nursing situation.
Mr. Superintendent?
Yes, we'll look at that. We can talk a little bit about it now. I did have a discussion with the city manager about the idea of moving the nurses to our side because we wanted to remain competitive with the market. And because a lot of them get trained and then they go to other districts because other districts pay them well. The city manager has no objection whatsoever. He said the school committee is welcome to take them any time they want because he knows that to bring them to our side and make them competitive with the market, you're going to have to pay them substantially more. And the question is really a budget issue. The reason that we never pursued it any longer is not that we didn't know what to do or how to do it. We know exactly how to do it and what to do. But the question was, if you recall, we were facing cuts already in the budget. So to bring in yet a new idea at that time that could potentially increase substantially was something that we didn't think. We would be looking at it now for a model that is already working, changing it to cost us a little bit more. Now, yes, not working maybe to perfection, because especially when you lose nurses right before school because they decided to go to neighboring districts, they paid them more. It's painful. As you recall, the beginning of last year or this year as well, we always had to wait for some.
We would
Yeah,
eight
at some
nurses
point, yeah. We were
last
down
fall.
nurses.
And it's happening all the time. It's a revolving door because we're not competitive.
It will, and we are more than happy to present a proposal to the school committee during budget time to bring them back in. I think everybody's in agreement, that's okay. I don't think there is any objection from anyone. The question is just to finding the funds of doing it, to do it.
I guess my question was just that I didn't get that report. I didn't get a suggestion about how to do it, or that, what would it cost to, just that whole analysis, so we know what we're facing, not at the, 11th hour when we're trying to pull the budget together, but really as we go into our planning, it's just something I think it should be.
I'm certain that Deputy Durkin will be very happy to put that report together.
So just to reiterate, we did present, we had nurse manager Beth Moffett here from the city, and she did present the salaries for the nurses and shared some of the challenges with the competitive. She shared the competitive rates at that meeting. So the one piece that I see that we can add to that is, a potential what it would cost if we were to meet those competitive costs.
Are you all set, Ms. Stern? Any further discussion regarding the quarterly reports on motions? Hearing none, we'll move on to the presentation of the superintendent, the year in review. Mr. Superintendent.
Did you hear that?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, just a little explanation of the process, because I know for the people who have not gone through this or listening at home, a little summary. This process is a 2-year process. It started July 1st, 2015, and ended officially June 30, 2017. And this process of evaluation is the one we have agreed to use the state process. And the state process is really the same, whether you're a superintendent, teachers, principals. They all have pretty much the same guidelines, where you identify goals, specific goals that you want to work with within a year. It doesn't mean that's the only thing you're going to work with. You're going to work with other things. And also the state has a certain number of standards. They have 4 categories of standards that they would like you to pay attention to as you're performing your work and as you're doing your goals. There are always 2 required goals. One is a student achievement goal, and one is a professional goal. That is required of everybody that works with schools. And then you can define what you want to do specifically around that goal, those goals. And then there are what we, for the superintendent district goals, and you can have a minimum of 2, and you can have as many as you want, really, in goals. Now, so these goals are determined for the 2 years. What I have also circulated to the school committee is what we refer to as the summative forms. So the process is that you look, again, this is just looking at the second year, that combining it with was done already in the first year, where you had already filled out the formative assessment forms. And in those forms that I have submitted to you, you will see the summary of each one of the goals and the standards that need to be filled by you. And the process that we talked about, the timeline last week, was that these forms, between today and the December 6th meeting, any member is free to call the superintendent's office, and at any time we can meet, discuss whatever you want, whether in this presentation or not, or anything pertaining to these goals, standards. And then on December 1st, these forms are due to the mayor's office, and the mayor is to prepare what we call it's not really an average, because the state doesn't like averages. They talk about consensus. It's a consensus because you can only have one evaluation by the board, not individual evaluations. Individual evaluations are, should be represented by the consensus. And then on December 6th, that the mayor has to present, or designee has to present that to the community in a public meeting. So this is what it is. So the report today that you see is really a 2-part report in this one. It's the first part that deals with the goals that we had set for ourselves. And the second part is a little bit of the standards. There's a lot of repetition in between, obviously, because when you're talking about standards of student learning, it's the same criteria that applies to your goal of student achievement. So there will be a lot, and I'll be skipping a lot of that, otherwise we'll be sitting here for a few hours. So I'll start with just a summary of that. Again, as I said, this is the second year of the two-year process. We've had in these 2 years, which happens to be also coinciding with my first 2 years in Lowell, with quite a few challenges that we had. We had challenges anywhere from student, we have that incidents that we started last year with. We had a year that the last 2 years we hired, I think, more than ever before, mostly because we have added several CSA programs in many schools. We also added a day school. So these are like really serious challenges that you have to work with. We had also a lot of fiscal challenges that we had to deal with. We did finish out every year well, but before we finish out, we always have issues with that. We had, of course, one of the biggest distraction of all, which I didn't even mention here, but is the high school thing. We're still dealing with that. And believe it or not, that had a really big impact on the functioning of the administration in terms of distraction. What I do want to say, though, is that along with these challenges as well, we had I don't want to miss one very important one, which is the bubble of the middle school. We've had numbers really higher than ever before, particularly in grade fifth grade that we had to deal with. And there was no plan. There was no long-term plan. I didn't walk into where we had a plan and we just had to follow the plan, because these kids, as I said earlier, didn't come to us now. They came to us in kindergarten many years ago for most of them, but there was no plan. So we had to come up with plans on the go. This is not how you normally want to function, that wake up in the morning and say, what do we deal with today? You want to plan. So we had to deal with all these challenges, yet, one thing that we're very proud of is even with these challenges, we did finish both years balanced budgets. In the first year, we had a substantial surplus that we turned around and invested very, very much into the technology, which we'll see now in a minute how that paid off. It paid off tremendously for us. And also the second year, we also had a much smaller surplus, but we did have a surplus as well. In these 2 years, it's really important to know that most of the urban schools did not have that luxury, did not have those balanced budgets. I remember sitting in urban school meetings where most of my colleagues were reporting on how they had to go back to their communities to try to get some additional funding so they can balance their years. So we did fairly well there, regardless of all the challenges and the disagreements we had on the presentations and whether it was presented well or not well, or whether those are just the technicalities. The end result is we did have fantastic 2 years of balancing the budget, and we outperformed most of our, not all, but quite a bit of our colleagues in the urban schools. Also, during these 2 years where we had substantial challenges, we've also delivered 2 of the best years of Lowell's academically. There's just no way of denying that when you look at the statistics. And I know some of you even run their campaigns based on that, on how well we did in the schools. And good for you. I mean, you deserve that as well, that credit. But we did have 2 great years in schools where we had some of the best performance in there. And we put together a team that I think now is a solid team. We still a lot to go, but I think with the good team that we have and the great teachers that we have and students, I think we're ready. We have a really good start, and we're on our way to good growth. So in the first goal that I'd like to talk a little bit about is the professional practice goal. And for us in the professional practice goal, one thing that was very dear to me is to establish a strategic plan, because you can't really operate an institution of our size without a plan. You need a plan. And so we did not have a plan, a strategic plan. So we embarked on right away on developing a strategic plan. And the first year we started putting the plan together, and we presented that to you, if you recall. In the second year, our focus was really on developing the key performance indicators for each of the pillars and each of the goals that we have, because developing goals without coming up with ways to measure them, whether you're doing well or not, is obviously not gonna, it's just gonna be a document sitting on a shelf. So that was what we achieved there. By now we have developed with all of our teams, including school leaders, we developed KPIs for all of the pillars. The other thing that we focused on this year is really that our district leaders, school-based and central office-based professionals, focus on making sure that their own goals are aligned to the strategic plan, because that really is essential, because otherwise you're missing that alignment piece. You can have a nice strategic plan, but if everybody else is focusing on something else, you don't necessarily have that alignment piece. So that was a big focus that we did this year. And the third thing, and we did that both in schools, as I said, as well as the central office. And the third piece that really we wanted to do is to make sure that now that you did all of that, is how do you communicate that in a very efficient way. And we had started, we are still developing the dashboard. If you go to the next slide, it gives you, next page gives you a summary of what's available now on the dashboard, which is continuously going through improvement. We're going to keep improving it and improving it. And what is coming soon on the dashboard. And the idea behind this dashboard is really communication to the public, to be as transparent as we can be on this one, and at the same time to provide a data tool for our own leaders, school leaders, and be able to have base their decisions a lot more on data analysis, on the data they analyze. And of course, this dashboard is something that we have undertaken ourselves, building it. So yes, you're going to see some growing pains. Yes, it's not going to be very sexy right away. It's going to take us years to build it. We did not have the $250,000 that some richer districts would have just put into buying one that's already made and very fancy. So but the data is there. That's really the important that we're trying to do. So that's what our focus on the professional goals. And I think we've done, in my opinion, we've achieved all that we wanted to achieve for these 2 years. I think we'll still have a lot more to go in this one, and we will continue. It's not that, okay, the goal is done, now we drop that and we move on to something else. We'll continue to do that. The next one, which is really the most important one for us, is that the student learning goal. Initially, we had started the first year to focus on narrowing the achievement gap for all students. Student achievement continues on an upward and stable incline for most schools. I think LPS has seen 2 shifts already on the testing, the MCAS to PARC to and then back to MCAS. These changes make it always very difficult to assess your progress and how do you measure year to year. But I think with a little bit of algorithms that our data people work with, we can try to come up, even though we're really talking about different tests, come up with some comparisons. We've had, again, in this area of achievement, I think it's just, if you want to narrow the achievement gap, you can't escape talking about really overall achievement and performance of students. And again, in these 2 years, I believe we're very proud. I know I am, and I know my team is very proud of the 2 years that we have delivered. We've seen dropout data, attendance rate, discipline data continue to improve. I think we've seen about every measure that we wanted to go up has been going up. Every measure that we wanted to go down has been going down. In the worst cases, it would have stabilized. Just as means of example, just giving you in the next chart, it's quite hard to read, as I apologize for people who are reading it off their TV. It's really difficult to read it. By the way, this report is going to, once completed and, cleaned up and everything, will be put online for anybody to download. This is just one simple chart of where we are, say, as a whole. This is the combined achievement percentile and student growth percentile for this year after the MCAS of this year. Comparing us to the urban schools, you see that Lowell median, the median in Lowell is really, we're around a third in the urban schools in terms of combining the achievement with the student growth percentile. But what is more important in here is the color. For those of you who have the color copy, and if you can see the colors indicate the greener the better. If you're in the red, that's not so good. And the greens indicate usually that 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 you have a positive student growth. Because in the area of student achievement, I think the important thing is not just to show that you're having a better performance, but I think you need to maintain and sustain that performance through positive student growth. And that's what really interests us a lot.
Can I just ask one question? What do the dots refer to? Are those schools?
Oh, I'm sorry. The dots are your, the number of the schools.
So those
these
are
are the
schools.
schools,
Each
yeah.
school has a dot on the
Right,
scale.
each school has a dot, yeah. And I know we talk about it later, but this is taken, I have given you, also circulated to you as an additional piece of information, the report done by our data analyst, Mr. Schlickman, which has a lot more information on the MCAS analysis, and he will be presenting even a more complete report than the one we've given you today on December 20th meeting. I have asked him to be ready to prepare it in a public meeting. The next slide, just again to confirm that we were talking about what contributes to really, we all know that what contributes to a good student achievement is your dropout rate, to try to keep the kids in school. And we've had historic lows in the past 2 years, and this year is going into the same directions. We do not have yet the data reported back from DESE, but we know it's in the same directions. Quickly on the fourth and the fifth, yes, ma'am.
Just a quick year question, just so I know I'm tracking this right. Because it looks like we're tracking different years on different things. So like this one, the dropout rate, looking at 14-15 and then 15-16. So we're currently in 17-18.
Right.
So just trying to correlate this with, I'm sorry.
I can.
If you can help me, that would be
share,
great. If you can
share
guess
that
what
with
my
you.
question was, that'll be great.
Where the state reports a year out.
Okay.
So we will be getting the 16-17 data in December or January of this year. So we do know numbers. The state provides us with data in early October. We review that data and resubmit the data, and then it's reported back out officially in December, January. So you will have that as soon as it's reported out.
So when we
along
did
with
the
the discipline
formative
data.
assessment, we were looking at which year?
You would have been for that, what time did we do it?
It would have been, I mean, you've been here 2 years, so would that have been 15-16?
I think
And
you
then we're
might-
waiting for 16-17?
Don't remember whether the 15-16 would have
I'm
been
not sure either.
released or yet. We can go back and figure that out.
I'm just trying to figure out where the start point is. I'm sorry to interrupt, thank you.
So again, another measure that we look at also and closely monitor is the graduation rate, both the fourth and the fifth, and the 5-year graduation rate. Obviously, we want everybody to graduate in 4-year, but we've got no problem that they graduate in 5-year. Just graduate. I think it's a good idea. And as you can see, that in so far, the one reported in 2015 is pretty respectable for our high schools. So, and one other more measure that I want to talk to that contributes to better achievement is definitely the absence rate, because that's where it all starts, making sure that they do stay in school and come to school. And again, the trend is going down. We want it to go down. We have a little in the 16-17. That is where it shows a slightly higher, but that the Deputy Durkin has already reported it to the state. They've actually had errors in calculating in some of these.
I can share what that is. So last year, if you recall, you all voted that the Career Academy would become a standalone innovation school. And with that was also a waiver that needed to be submitted. Timing didn't work out for the school, so with the innovation status, the school no longer has time associated with a student being in every single day. It's about competency based. So we are working with the state right now. They will not retract the data, even though we know that because the Career Academy's data was included in that it inflated the attendance. And when we look at it, it's much more closely aligned if we remove that data with like about a 15.2%.
So again, we know why the error is 16, and that doesn't really concern us, because if we take the Career Academy out, the data would have shown 15.2.
If I could, on the same thing. So, but 15, 16 also included the Career Academy. So
Right.
it's not really a.
No, but it's in the, go ahead.
But however, in 15-16, the Career Academy was part of Lowell High School into a much larger population. Additionally, the Career Academy in 15-16 had requirements for students being in school like all other students across the district. So it was the changing of that. So we're working with the state right now. We've had conversations weekly for the last 2 months regarding this. And what they're telling us is that we cannot necessarily get a full waiver out. We're still going to need to report it, but they're going to work with us to create an algorithm so that we can get a much more accurate representation for the next cycle.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And the next slide is an important one because it compares us to districts like us, urban school districts. And you can see that in terms of chronic absences, even with our error embedded there, the 16, if you bring it down to 15.2, you'd see it even more pronounced, that we're really doing better than many of the districts that are like us, Fall River, Fitchburg, Springfield, Lawrence, and so forth. And that, of course, is a result of all the policies, the plans that we've been putting into place. Student Services has been working really hard to make sure that students do come, students stay, don't drop out, and try to come as often as we would like them to. The next slide is also an important one because that's the discipline piece. As we all know, and we've heard so much about discipline, discipline goes hand in hand with achievement. If you got kids that disturb the classroom, the whole class loses concentration. By the time you get them back, you lost 20 minutes of learning. So discipline is a really important piece of what we're focused on in this administration. And again, you see the trend continues to go down. And we will work to make sure that it continues to go down. And whether it's in-school suspensions or out-of-school suspension. I think you're always going to have some of those because obviously you want to address the discipline, but the idea is to create a culture where the kids know that it doesn't really serve them well or serve anybody that they act out in school. And the best way to do it is to get them engaged and keep them engaged in the classroom.
I'm sorry if I missed this, but why didn't we include the graduation rates for 2017? Did you explain that one and I missed it?
No, I can do that for you.
We
We can certainly do that for you.
We just didn't include it?
Just
or-
didn't include it.
Okay.
And I think the other piece when you're talking about student achievement, not only your discipline, your attendance, your graduation, and so forth, you can't complete the picture unless you talk about rigor, because you have to have rigor. And you've heard me talk about this before. When you're working with students, you try to address all the groups. You're going to have several groups of students. You have those that need attention, and you bring the tutors, and you bring that help. And you also want to address the upper end and have as many kids as possible that can have the highest rigor possible. And what we, and I know that was an effort that was encouraged by one of the committee members, Jackie Doherty, which brought us a partner to work with a partner of Mass Insight. And I had worked with Mass Insight before, and I'm really happy that they came to work with us here because my previous work with them was very positive, and I was really impressed by the way they had helped us increase the two things. One, the number of participation of kids who participate in AP classes, and two, the scores on AP exams. And I have high hopes that we're going to be able to do the same thing. And they were really eager to work with us as well, so much so that they really discounted so much their cost to Lowell. I mean, we pay substantially less than any one of the other districts they work with because they really wanted to work with Lowell and they were eager to work with us. And we're very happy to be a partner. Another piece that I think helps in the overall achievement gap and the achievement measures that we look at is how the ELL. We're one of the districts that we have a lot of newcomers, a lot of ELL, And that can really hurt you quite a bit if you don't know how to handle them well. So streamlining the newcomer process, the assessment process, figuring out exactly where they are, where do you place them, how many resources you need to put. It's not an easy task. And this year, the second year, we worked on it last year, the second year here, we've really put in great deal of changes that absolutely transformed it. And two things I want to draw your attention to. On September 1st of last year, we had 50 students, that's September 1st, 50 students still waiting to be tested, which means they can't go to school. Which means when you put them back in school, you're going to disturb everybody. You're going to disturb the principals. You're going to figure out a way how to handle them. And you're going to have to work with them more. It also strains your resources to getting more tutors. In this year, September 1st of this year, there were no students waiting. They were all taken care of. We adopted the just-in-time process. They come in, we test. It's no longer like before. So we've really transformed that part, and it's not an insignificant part. It's a major part of what we do and how it affects us in our achievement rating. Another piece that I think is noteworthy and is really important is the MCAS 2.0, the online. And I remember a couple years ago, and I know we had a lot of discussions, and again, agreements, and we all finally went and we had that big investment in technology. That really paid off for us. When we invested that technology, and I know, again, you guys were always, investing pretty much in technology. Mr. Gendron was highly involved with the technology committee on that. But that specific year, if you recall, we really invested heavily toward the end of the year. What it did to us, it's allowed us and enabled us to be able to be fully capable of doing all our tests online. And we were really definitely one of the very few urban schools to do that, and we remain as well, so many urban. So that that investment gave us 2 years head start. We were ready 2 years ahead of everybody. So now in 2019, our kids will have that advantage. And when you look at Mr. Schlickman's report, he points out as well to that. It's that our kids, because this is the second year that they did the online, that really helped them out. They went over that fear of the online and that confusion, and we really believe that is one of the reasons why we were one of the urban schools that did better on the online MCAS. Maybe because our kids, were already trained at that in 2 years in a row. Another thing that we have introduced, which I think is really important, we've introduced a lot of things. Obviously, in the report, you try to focus only on the few of the important things, is the reading committees that our SPED program department works with the schools, creating this reading committee. What it really is really developing for our special ed students a special individualized programs of reading for their level. And it's really important for that because, as you know, you miss the reading, you will miss the math, you will miss everything else down the road. So it was really important that we captured those needs for the students. And on the next slide, what I really wanted to show you was also a little bit, because I know most of, if you're like me, we're all asking like, but this is great, the MCAS too, we've done well, but how do we really compare to the old system and the accountability system? Where would we have been if we were the old accountability system? Now, the state did not use an accountability system this year, except for the high school, because they were using the same old MCAS system. Also, for the high school is still a level 3, but the good news is that they have improved. They've moved from by 2 percentiles up from 11. So that's good news for the high school. But on the other schools, they didn't give us an accountability. But what we did is we took all the measures that they use in their accountability formula and applied it ourselves and trying to figure out where would we be if we used the accountability system. This year we counted the Rogers School, the STEM school, because the 3 prior years here in this table, the STEM school was not accounted for because it was a new school and it didn't have all the grades. So this year by counting the STEM school, you can see that we have maintained the same achievement, and at the level 1 we would have had, if we still had the levels, we would have had 8 level 1 schools, 7 level 2 schools, and 6 level 3 schools. And the very good news is that none none of our level 3 schools is now in any danger of going level 4. We pulled them out. So not any one of them. And I think that's a remarkable achievement in a very short time.
Mr. Superintendent?
Yes.
Can I stop you right there? On this page, it indicates that perhaps it's just a typo. It says the Robinson, no, wow.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It should say the Rogers.
Rogers.
Right, okay.
Thank you for correcting it. Let me put a note of that. I always call the Rogers the Robinson. All right, so I think again, I don't want to dwell too much on the MCAS because the MCAS for this year, you have a full report on that, and we will be giving a public report on the 20th. We'll talk more about that. But just to summarize it, I think we have now more schools above state average than ever before in Lowell. And then I think what really helped is all these achievements and the hard work of the teachers and the educators and the administrators who work with them. So good job, and I know we'll continue on that same trajectory. Now going on to the district improvement goals, I think the one that we had worked with was the first one was in trying to keep increased community engagement and transparencies. We worked on that one the first year. This year we really continue to do the same, whatever we had established the first year. All reaching out to the community, participating with the community. We continue to do that. I think some of the highlights here, and I'm not going to go through the whole slide here since you have it in front of you, but definitely we're promoting school PTOs more, school site councils more, and I think we've got to a place where at least now the principals know it really is important to have those school sites councils, and they all report having them. We're also making sure that they are up and running on the website in way of communicating to the community about them. And now comes the next stage, which obviously is start getting them more and more active and bringing more parents involved, as Ms. Doherty was talking about earlier, is bringing more parents involved into the schools. And these two groups are usually the first two groups you want to work with. Another thing that we made sure that in this administration we hold dear is that amongst us, the superintendent and the assistant superintendent, is that any important event that is school related, whatever that is, whether it's a school event or a non-school event, it's a community event, but it's school related, you will always see one of us. Obviously, as a superintendent, there's no way that I can be in all of them. It's just not a possibility. And I'm very blessed to have three great assistants, one deputy and two assistants who really very active in that. And between the four of us, you'll always see somebody there representing us and making sure that we're part of the community. We'll also continue to be involved in all the major groups and task forces in the community. And so we continue to look outward in how to become engaged in the community, but we also do our own internal transformations to make sure that we engage the community better. And one example of that is the restructuring of our Family Resource Center. I think it was, if I had any doubt that it was a good idea when it was we were first talking about it as a team, I now absolutely have no doubt that it was a great idea to separate that into two and focus the Family Center on engaging and supporting the families and giving them a much more personalized and targeted support. I think this Family Engagement Center, I believe, is one of our strengths, and again, we're very proud of what we have accomplished in 2 years, and I believe we'll just continue to make sure that we maintain what we've done so far well, and continue to hopefully bring more better ideas to how to improve. The next district improvement goal is improving the diversity in hiring. More than 2/3 of our students are minorities. We all know that. Our staff is overwhelmingly of one type, white. I think that goes with it's not an easy thing to solve. It's a problem that every urban school district is facing. So it's not a problem that is just for Lowell. Everyone works with that. It's a challenge to all. We're not going to be able to all of a sudden turn around and say magically we're going to have 2/3 of our staff is going to be, it's not going to happen. But the efforts need to be there, and we're putting a great deal of effort into that. And, but we're not only putting the effort, but I think we do have some numbers to show that. If you look at in 2016 and 2017, we hired about 13% of our teachers that we hired, and I focused here only on teachers and paraprofessionals, because they're really the ones who are directly involved with the students on a day-to-day. 13% of our teachers were minorities, and 44% of our new paraprofessionals were minorities. And I think that represents a significant increase over the previous 2 years of 2015 and the years of 14, 15, and 15, 16, where the numbers were much lower. I think we've heard the school committee. The school committee has spoken about this more than once, that they wanted us to pay real serious attention to this and make sure that we address this. And I think we are. Is it difficult? It's probably the most challenging things we do, day in, day out. Recruitment in and of itself, without even focusing on hiring successful minorities, is very difficult to compete. And trying to focus on improving the minority ratios is even more difficult to do. But we're still working really hard to do that, and the numbers show it. This year, we still have respectable, if you look at our recruitment, 8% of teachers were minorities, and 26% of new paraprofessionals were minorities. The numbers have gone down a little, but I think there's a really good reason why. When you look at that this year we had 209 hires between teachers and paras. Last year we had 122 only. And that represents a 71% increase over last year. That's a tremendous task. That's asking people to do 71% more work with the same workforce. So it is really difficult to try to be very refined and say, yes, I want to maintain the same standards. I'm going to go look again for the minorities. It's really overwhelming. And I think just the fact that they have achieved an 8% and 20% is very commendable on what they did. So this area of hiring, I think we not only looking at the numbers, but I think more important to look at is really the initiative that we have put in place the last 2 years, because it is these initiatives that are going to help conquer and achieve that goal. First, one of the initiatives we're working with is we're trying to bring back a locally district-based certification program, and we've reached an agreement with DESE to offer one in SPED and ELL to start. They're going to start us out with this 2, and then they see how well we maintain our records, and they audit us, and if they're happy, they let us do other fields. Because this will increase, in my opinion, help us develop our own talent locally. And I know some of the school committee members, I know Doherty, I'm sure others as well, I know Mr. Hoey has been involved many times in this, have been working and pushing us toward working with other partners, UMass Lowell and MCC and so forth, to do that. So one of the programs that we have, that we're working with, is to try to get our paraprofessionals that do not have yet a bachelor's degree work with some of the partners. And I know we have an event coming up where we're promoting that and trying to get these paraprofessionals to come and learn. We have universities and colleges coming in to present to them how they can get their bachelor's degree and get financial aid and so forth. Why we're focusing on the paraprofessionals, because that happens to be the group that has probably the highest ratio of minorities. So if we can develop our own talent, people who already know how to work with our kids and know them, I think that's a winner. So we have one program that addresses those paraprofessionals who do not have a bachelor's degree. We also have another program with UMass Lowell and Fitchburg State of paraprofessionals who do have a bachelor's degree, and we're trying to get them to be certified to become teachers. If you walked in our schools, you probably would have noticed that few of our paraprofessionals are newcomers, and they already have degrees back in their countries. They're well educated, but they don't have yet that equivalency in here in the certification, and they're trying to acquire the English language proficiency themselves. So we're helping them getting through our partners to getting their certification. And also we're starting on a plan of early recruitment. We put a plan into place and have asked HR that really starting right after January 1st, right after the new year. Let's not wait for March and April like others, and then we can't compete that. We'll start right away and start doing early recruitment on that. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. While you're talking about the staffing and diversity, I know you're going to be giving us a report at the first meeting in December about an update on the diversity. I'm wondering if you could include the administration as
Sure.
well, in terms of new hires, administrators, in that report.
Right.
To just complete the picture. Thank
Sure,
you.
sure we will. And then I think it's we'll continue to increase our participation in job fairs. I think that's an important one. But also we're looking at utilizing online resources. There are a lot of resources out there that now can take you farther places without traveling there. Just do it online. On the next district improvement goal is which is really very important to us, is to develop, and this is a new one, by the way. Let me explain a little bit what I did in here. In the evaluation plan, there is no restriction as to in the second year adding more goals, because as you're trying to work with your goals, you might find out something and say, oh gee, I really should have focused on something. So as we worked out through the first two, we thought that we would like to get a couple more goals in here, and shared leadership. You'll see some others when we go, is something that is really dear to us. In the last 2 years, we focused very heavily on transforming the professional development of our leaders. It often, if you have to really be careful with that it doesn't become just a bureaucratic check mark that we've done some PD, that you get something really meaningful. So this year, we did something last year, and we refined it this year. The end result of it for this year is that we divided the leadership into 3 parts, the A, B, and C. A are all your principals and some of the people from the high school, and then also the C is the assistant, the B is the assistant principals, and the C is the rest of the professionals. So, and we targeted that their PDs is 100% targeted to what is of concern to school leaders, the things that they face and we've also bless you, this year we've engaged with the RBT, Research for Better Teaching, and to work with the PD. So, and that has been going on really, really well in there. And in the cohort C, we took a different approach because the C group is, everybody does something different. It's different expertise. They're all very different. So instead of trying to give them something common, we've been tried over and over before, really hasn't helped much, is we asked them to really take advantage of individual opportunities for PD on improving their own skills in their area, and then bring it back to the group and disseminate that information to the rest, who might not be specialized in it, but yet may benefit from that information. And I think all administrative meetings have been redesigned to provide targeted professional learning for school leaders through book studies and action planning, and we're getting everybody engaged. We even got Mr. Fresh engaged as well, and he attends those as well with the principals. In the same one, as I mentioned earlier, we're looking not only at participation, collaboration, and so forth, but we're looking at rigor even then. Rigor is not just us sharing experiences with each other, but we're bringing really highly respected individuals, and we used our professional development. This year, we used them to engage in the research for better teaching, which is they work with school leaders, but they also whatever they do work with school leaders, they align that with the work that they do with the coaches and instructional specialists, and we're absolutely also focusing on delivering PD opportunities that are well aligned with the goals, with all these professional goals and our strategic plan. All right. So again, the couple more highlights, and I'll let this one go and move to the other one, is the new mentoring program that we established. DESE has guidelines for mentoring programs. I know when I came 2 years ago, we didn't really have anything formal at all. Last year, we instituted something semi-formal, and this year we made it really formal. Every new principal, we assign a mentor, and that principal works with the mentor, and depending on the need, they could be less frequent, but in the case, like, let's say Mr. Stahl had literally physically went to the Robinson and stayed there with the team for some time, and we plan to do that for their first 2 years of employment, and I think it's a well-structured program, and everybody, along with the Director of Accountability and the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum, they develop guidelines and rubrics, and everybody's asked to do the same thing. So I think that's a highlight of this new shared leadership. And again, I'll reiterate what I said earlier, is that part of that shared leadership is really asking all the leaders, the principals, assistant principals, and all central office, that when they are doing their goals, and all of these people are evaluated by one of the superintendents, one of the 4 of us, and we look very carefully at that when they establish their goals, that their goals are aligned with the district strategic plan, because when they are, we know at least there is some form of alignment there. And lastly, also, what we had established is that we have a quarterly open forum. I meet with all the principals. I meet them, of course, when I go visit, but in that forum is really for them the opportunity to bring any concern they may have directly to my attention. I have an open door policy, not only with principal, but with anybody, parents alike, and they come whenever they want. But that forum, I think, was very important, because they end up sharing together and trying to address issues together. A little bit, when I came in also 2 years ago, one thing that I immediately noticed, and I think most of you know, and some others, is a little bit of a disconnect in the curriculum alignment between K-8 and A-12. The high school has always kind of been on its own, and it's a little, we've changed that. I think the high school now is closely aligned in curriculum with the rest of the district. We really truly have a K through 12 alignment. We're much more engaged in the high school. The curriculum coordinators now, they don't have only their head of school to evaluate them, but they have their head of school and the assistant superintendent of curriculum, because it's really important not only to be good, but to be good and well aligned with the K through 8. Model. And the same thing for the student services. Not only that the coordinators there, not only that they have their head of school that evaluates them, but they have deputy for social student services to evaluate them. I think this model is not my model. It's a model that is successful, that exists out there, and we just made sure that we implement it. It was not a model in existence before these past 2 years. Another goal that I had added was to really keep us involved on a statewide with innovative educational assessment and accountability. Accountability is a hottest topic statewide. And how do we evaluate our schools? It's really important. When the state comes in and slaps you with a level 4 label, that just destroys your community. Young people want to leave, everybody gets scared and so forth. So it is really hot, but I don't think anybody believes that it is well done in the state. So there is a great deal of effort by several groups in the state. And how do we define a better accountability system? How do we measure our school? Is it fair to measure Lowell High School with, I don't know, Lexington's High School or Weston's High School or Holyoke High Schools for that matter? It's not. The parameters are different. So how do we define a better accountability system? And by the same thing, you've heard lots of complaints about standardized testing statewide, not just in Lowell. And that's an effort that is really important statewide. There's an effort in what can we do? How do we develop a standard-based assessment test that is not standardized. That's something that really tells us truly about the development of the child, the development of the student. So it is a thing that I've always been interested in for years and years, but it is also something that I made sure that we participate in. So as Lowell, you've heard me say that before, we belong to the Massachusetts Consortium of Innovative Educational Assessment, and we're one of the leaders there. I'm personally the co-chair of that task force, and we work very closely with the urban school district. We work closely with DESE and the assistant, one of the associate commissioners there, and that's something that we plan to maintain because it really helps us statewide, but it helps us also in Lowell. Being part of that group, for instance, we were able to engage 6 of our schools to be able to get involved with this educational assessment alternative and have the teachers develop it from bottom up. And we also get some financing to make sure that we pay for the time of the teachers. We get $10,000 per school. And I think if we get now 6 schools, and it's really important because now they can bring back that information and that PD that they get and disseminate it throughout the district. And we plan to maintain that effort. At this point is where the second part of the evaluation comes in, where you talk about the specific standards that the state says, and it's really a lots of repetition of what is done. I'll go very briefly on those. In the instructional leadership, the first one is the standards is really the same as the student achievement and some of the stuff that we talked about so far. So I'm going to leave that for your reading. You'll see that there's a lot of repetition in there. There are some highlights of how we met those standards, in the interest of saving some time, I'm going to skip through directly to the standard 2 because that one has a little bit more information than was included in the goals. And in the standard 2, the state wants to know how do you handle your management and operations, and they give you several criterias. And the first one in the environment, I think some highlights in there is that we did in the management is that it was, as you recall, in the first year we've done a restructure on the finance and technology department, which we believe is getting us more focused. Is it the end all? Did we do it? Did we succeed? No, not at all. But we improved. We will hopefully one day be sitting here and say, yes, we succeeded, but how long is it going to take to be fully optimal? A year, 2, 3, I do not know, but the important is not whether you will be fully optimum in a year, 2, or 3, but the important is that you continue to improve. The same thing in some of the highlights here is that we've done, which I think have improved our management operations tremendously, is the curriculum support. It was completely restructured. When you come in the morning, except for the first maybe 5-10 minutes, you will never see our curriculum people in the central office. They're all in schools. There's no more, they all have offices. Their offices are always empty. They come in, they get their task, they get what they need, and they're out. They're in the schools. So they became really part of the schools. And some of the schools, that high-need schools, such as the Robinson, the Sullivan, where we're trying to help those new principals, I have even asked them that they make their homes, whoever's assigned to that school, make your home that school. And I know one of them in Robinson Student Services, that's her home now. She makes that her home, and then she goes, of course, service the other schools, but when she's not, she's back in there. I think that redesign and restructuring completely the curriculum and the student services there is really is what is helping us dealing directly with the needs of the school. Another thing that we changed drastically is the way we redesigned instructional technology. Instructional technology was part of technology department, and it was much more about technology, much more by making sure those machines work and so forth, those board work. It shouldn't be that. Instructional technology has nothing to do necessarily about technology. It has to do with instructional. The focus is on the first word, not the second. And we've restructured that completely with our instructional technologies. Is the same thing. I think those guys, you'll never see them in the central office. They're always in schools. And their focus is really working directly with the teachers, administration, and making sure that they are equipped and they get skills to dealing with our data systems, our softwares, and so forth. There were still some teachers to this date, and we're working on it, this date who need help using simple things as smart boards, investment that you made maybe even before I came. You bought smart boards. So it's about time to utilize those investments. And I think that we can see the results of that. Outstanding. I attended several meetings with teachers in their common planning time, talking about the data, how teachers are using these data generated by those instructional technologies around student performance. It's really a pleasure to see that you can see the fruits of that taking place. And I think the one that is definitely something that we should never miss is I think we probably have the best labor relations that we've ever seen in at least I know in many of the districts I worked with, and that's really important, extremely important in many ways, because when you have a good relationship with your labor groups, they're your partners. They help you tackle the challenges. If you have a very difficult situation, whether it's an individual situation with a teacher, they'll help you deal with it. Or sometimes a bigger situation. We're talking about a PD to all teachers. They are the ones who help you do that. And I think it's really important to maintain good relationships with them. And I think we have a really highly collaborative environment, and leading to really, for the past 2 years here, we've had very little resistance to change, or because we run it, we work together. They're there. They make us aware what we should be looking at, and the pitfalls, and making sure that we don't fall in and address those. And we definitely has a much higher level increase of trust, and which will only bear more fruits in the future. Again, in the management operation area, I think one thing worth to highlight is the development of our new day school. It's something that I think we should continue. We should grow. We should bring it home. It's a win-win. I can't see a single thing negative about that one. The parents want their kids closer. We want our teachers to be manning our own kids because they know them better. And we'll continue and working towards that. And then one more worth on this page that one more thing highlighting is definitely the initiative that our deputy is working with and leading the way with the Director of Special Education, which is really the expansion of PBIS. PPIS, which stands for Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports Training, is a really important initiative. And it's one of those that you really have to do it well. And it shouldn't be just about a check mark. You can go around and you just put your check mark and say, yes, I trained everybody, but did you really? Or you did everybody sit into the training? There's a big difference between the two. So I think we've seen a lot about sitting into the training, and we're moving to let's train well. So right now, we don't do too much sitting in the training, but we have all the student services out there really, really pushing on a daily basis, training people and making sure that they use the PBIS system, because that's a proven system that reduces anxiety, reduces discipline problems, and just help us improve our achievement. In that same area, on another criteria, the human resource development, I think a couple of the highlights, as I said, we're focusing on as I mentioned earlier when we talked about the goal about the hiring of the minorities, but more general, we have all those partnerships I mentioned. But one thing that I really would like to highlight here is, again, that the renegotiation with UTL of a much fairer and more efficient teacher transfer policy. And that was really like a really eyesore, really problem for us, a big problem. And I think this year when we renegotiated that in a really fair way, more efficient way, And the way we handle it has helped us tremendously in dealing with that piece. And also another one with our partners at UTL is the reorganization of the LTA, the Lowell Teachers Academy. It's something that we do together as partners, and we do a lot together. It allows us to bring in at an efficient cost PD to the teachers, and with the help of UTL pushing that and promoting that, we get better participation from the teachers to engage into these classrooms. We also use it for our recruitment. That's the vehicle that we're using for the certification. So these certification courses that we'll be offering from the state will be offered through the LTA. So it's a win-win all. The teacher gets credit for it, they get certification, they get PD. We offer it at an extremely low cost to the city of Lowell, and it helps us improve all the way. In terms of other highlights in the area of management operations, I think it's just the way we handle our meetings, or a couple of minor changes. They seem minor, they seem not so big deal, but they really are in some ways. Like when we have some policies that we put into place, and is that, for instance, when we meet with all central office, if we meet with one principal, we always try to meet at their school. It doesn't matter if 5 of us will move there, 10 of us will move there. It's easy for us to move than disturb a school leader, so we tend to try to go to them. If we meet more than one, we're meeting a few, we try to always make sure that it happens after school so we don't disturb them. Sometimes when we do have to meet, because we have an all-day meeting, we instituted a new policy is to make sure that we dispatch somebody from the cohort C, because they don't meet at the same times, and they go replace whoever is leaving. So there's always an additional adult there from central office. And I think I've been looking at most of the meetings, and I'm very pleased with the way they're handled. Meeting agendas are very well drawn and well established and communicated well in advance by all the assistant superintendents whenever they hold these meetings. In terms of one of the parts that the state likes you to be very focused on is the law and ethics and policies. That's really, it's an important issue. I think we do pretty well. I think there's a single meeting that we get together to talk as leaders where we don't have a topic of law or policies or that we work with. We work very closely with our labor attorney. I think we're almost daily working with them. Our 2 staff councils for special education are fully embedded with student services. They are within student services offices, and they work very closely with everyone in making sure that everybody abides by the ethics laws and any other state laws, school laws. And whenever appropriate, when we have issues that concern the city, vendors, matters of liability or so forth, we're also in consultation with the city solicitor on that. And during the past 2 years, I think we, in terms of our fiscal system, which is another area within management system, I've talked about it earlier, we've done complete transformations of the budget. I think we're through pains perhaps, but we are definitely improving it. If you look back at the past 2, between last year's and the year before, you'd see that there was a serious improvement. One of our biggest challenges which remains, and it is always a challenge, is the fact that our systems, now I'm talking about computer systems, software systems, still don't talk to each other. It's really difficult to do that. We're dealing with Munis for payroll, and we're attached to the city for our purchasing and so forth through Munis, but all our other systems, revolve around Aspen X2, and it's not always easy to make the do. So we waste a lot of time really cross-checking everything and doing, and it's just a lot of wasted effort. And this is going to be definitely the effort that we want to spend into the future. It's not simple. A lot of districts deal with that. We're not the only one dealing with that, because when you have a system like Munis, you've been working with it for years and years. It's not that easy to just wake up one day and say, you know what, let's take another one and let's move on. It's not that easy. It takes a long time. But we're working with that with the city, and and we continue to try to figure out ways to do that. And there was one item that relate to this, but also relates to previously in HR that I hadn't forgot to mention, is that one of the reasons being this is I have asked that we engage an HR auditor. And one of the main reasons is really these systems, figuring out how we can develop our systems and try to be more modern, try to be more, addressing one of the problems that we have to address every day, forms that people want, simple questions that people want on HR, payroll, things like that. I think that's something that remains a challenge. That's something that we want to continue to work on as we go. I think the one of the things that we probably did much better, given all these challenges, is in the budget process. I remember when I came in and I had met with all the principals through the summer. I asked them if they didn't mind meeting with me, and we met in small groups, and we met with every single one of them around coffee, spent a couple of hours, with 2 to 3 hours with each group. And two themes that they kept telling me about, that they wanted to see me, I had asked them plainly, what is it that, if you had any 2 things you want to ask me to work on, what would you like me to work on? And 2 things that kept coming back, and one of them is definitely the budget. They wanted to be part of the budget, because the budget was always determined and then sent to them. This is your allocation. They wanted to be part of the budget. And I can assure you that these past 2 years, they were fully part of the budget. We engaged them, and we work with them all the way. And I think another thing also that I have seen is the other thing, by the way, not related to this, but was the curriculum alignment. They felt very strong that they wanted to see more curriculum engagement and redefine the curriculum office. That's what led me to redesign the curriculum office to be school-based and focusing on schools. But going back to management and operations, I think they really appreciate the fact that we work early enough. We start usually quite early with them working on the budget. This year we developed, again with them, in discussion with all the school leaders, a new equity model. It doesn't mean that every one of them is going to raise their hand and say, I love it. Some of them may have actually called you and say, I hate it, and they may have complained to you. But it doesn't really matter, because you have to work with the consensus. I think overall, you see what, you can't please everybody, but you're going to try to work with the consensus. So we developed a new equity model, because when you looked at our schools prior, you looked just like, say, the middle schools, and you didn't quite understand why in the world would we have more teachers of one kind of this one and this one, yet we have six classes of 5th grade, the same, or 6th grade or 7th grade. So we really focused on that this year. We looked at it carefully last year. We started, working with it a little bit. This year was really where we looked at it and developed a new equity model that says, we all know you need math, you need science, you need you need social studies, whatever, then you need those teachers. Let's make sure you have that in place. Now, next level, we address the special education. What type of special ed you have assigned to you, and ELL and so forth. And that new equity model that we work with is probably, I would estimate, around 70 to 75% through this year. We couldn't make it happen all at once. We had probably by next year we'll be able to, next budget season we will be able to apply it everywhere. So I think I'll leave it that with with this part. On a third standard relates a lot of the things similar to what we talked about earlier. Is the family and community engagement. That state really likes you to pay attention to that. And I think, as we talked earlier, the participation of school councils and PTOs, the restructuring of the family resource centers, and the monthly parent liaison training that we have to work with families. All of that addresses some of the indicators that the state would like us to focus on. In that same area is the shared responsibilities. I think, again, it's we make sure that we're everywhere, we participate with all the collaborative, our partners. And a couple of highlights that we did in that community is now we have Katie's Closets. I know it might not be a big thing, but it is really a big thing for the kids who benefit from it. Established in every school, that's worth mentioning. A lot of the other items, as you can see, are repetition of what we had talked about during the discussion about that goal. And I think in the communication piece with the family engagement is also something that is really important, and I think we've increased quite a bit. Can we do better? I'm sure we can. I'm sure we will, as time permit to develop new ways and look in new ways. But we try to be there. I personally attend. I know that my assistants do that as well, both student services as well as curriculum, attending parents meeting, PTOs. You know, we try to be as many as we can't be everywhere because obviously we just can't be doing that. But we try to go definitely when we're invited. If we're invited, we do not turn down the invitations. We go, and sometimes we just drop in various ways. We also maintain, you know, a lot of two-way communication with parents. As I said, my door is open. I know parents email me all the time, and I try to respond as much as I can, as fast as I can, and I know they email quite often my Deputy Durkin specifically because she deals with student services, so she gets a lot of communication from parents, and I think she's probably has one of the best communication and consistent systems and structures that she's very good at it. If you email her, you will get a response. You may not like it all the time, but you will get it from her. Another standard that we work with is the establishing a professional culture, and again we do that through the stuff that I mentioned earlier, which is the PD for our school leaders and instructional specialists. We did that this year through making sure that we have full-time math instructional coaches to make sure our math teachers are constantly coached into the standards at all elementary and middle schools. We do a lot of, the curriculum office is continuously involved with standard-based professional development, and we try to engage in all professional developments in school-based, whether it's clinical or support staff. They do that as well. They're getting involved. They're out there. We do a lot of things. You probably don't hear about it because we don't have time to write anything about it. If we sit down to write about it, then we don't have time to do it. So we engage a lot more about doing it. I wish we had more people to help communicate that to the rest of the community of what we're doing. Again, within the same in the professional culture and I think one piece that is really important, the state focuses on, we like to focus on, is really that cultural proficiency. It becomes even more important for a district such as Lowell because of the makeup of our community, and we do quite a bit of that. We have a very strong partner, Project Learn, we work with, and we do quite a bit with them. They continue to work with us in all our recruitment efforts with that, but I know we've established cultural competency courses right within the LTA, the one that I was mentioning earlier, courses for teachers that they did. We provided training and courageous conversation last year throughout the high school programming for both teachers and students, and there were several events and efforts taking place there. And one more noteworthy is to mention is I think student services is doing an outstanding job in increasing the translation of documents for our families that use different languages, and they do the best they can. I know even in our all-call phone when we translate that to various languages so that parents can understand it. So there is a really good understanding of that, and I think our team does a pretty good work with that, given the minimal resources they work with. Again, it's the same thing within the professional culture in terms of communication. We talked about it before, but I think developing an open forum for transparent conversations with school leaders is really important, because they need to feel that they can speak freely to us about their concerns, and they do. They do, and we work very well with them with that. And now we also have, we try to communicate with them via newsletters and anything that's happening, and try to maintain that communication piece alive and active. And the continuous learning, we talked about it earlier through what we're doing with Research for Better Teaching. But another thing also is that our monthly administrative meeting, we kind of really changed them altogether. Is that we used to, when I first came and we attended the first ones, is we meet to really talk about the problems, or, oh, I'm having heat problems in there, so that we changed the tone of that a little bit from housekeeping to, those are still important, but we can communicate that in other ways throughout the day. We don't have to reserve a meeting of all the leaders for that, and really focus now to very focused topics, to deepening the understanding and learning of the leaders. And these usually are led by one of our assistants, either Deputy Durkin, if it happens to be in an area of student services or special education. If it happens to be in an area of curriculum, it will be led by Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum. And again, within the area of professional culture is really dealing with the shared vision, and we address that, as I mentioned earlier, through making sure that when developing their own goals, that they're well aligned with the rest of the institution, with their strategic plan and so forth, and their own school plans as well. And finally, one area that is, I think, important is to always address is and pay attention to is within the professional culture standard. This is the managing the conflicts. A couple of highlights on there is I think the Department of the Student Services has very, very well-established processes in dealing with anything that touches their students, any kind of conflict that address. We have a student involved. They have very, very highly qualified people and very well thought out processes. We have, as I said, the two councils are involved with us on a daily basis, and there isn't a single conflict that happens that you would not find one of the two involved with. They will always be there to make sure that whatever way we address that conflict, that it is legal, that it is ethical, and we follow all the rules. So and they're continuously working on improving those processes as well. I think also the relationship with our unions has been incredibly helpful in dealing with conflicts and resolving conflicts. A lot of the problems we deal with, they get resolved before we even get to actually talk about them, and that is because of the open, very truly open collaboration we have with our labor unions to bring the problems and talk about them and see how we're going to resolve them. Just before this meeting, I stole an hour of time to make sure I sit down with Mr. Paul Georges, because we had two serious issues to talk about involving staff, and we addressed it, and I know we're going to address it well before it becomes a big conflict, and maybe before everybody even gets to hear about it. That's really important to maintain that relationship. And the last thing I think, if you want to really manage conflict, is really increase trust and increase accessibility. We do have, as I said, I do maintain my door open, and it did happen many times during the past 2 years where teachers just wanted to talk to me because they felt they wanted me to address something that they felt it was serious for them. And they come and we are very serious. We'll listen to them, and we address all the problems. So on that note, thank you very much. And as I said earlier, I'll be very happy to sit down with any one of you at your pleasure, whenever you want, between now and then, whether you're an existing school committee or new school committee. Even if you don't have to vote on this one, we'll be happy to sit down with you and go over this and the goals or any ideas you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Any discussion on this report? Ms. Doherty?
I just have a question regarding next steps. So We are supposed to complete the evaluation by December 1st, so that means try to meet
November.
with the superintendent.
Yes.
Next week is Thanksgiving, and then the next week is December 1st.
Yes.
It really doesn't give us much time to try to meet with him, and I just want to point that out.
Okay.
That's difficult time frame.
Well, why don't we try? And if it doesn't work, we can always extend it. Any further discussion? If not, the Chair would entertain a motion to accept the reports of the superintendent and place them on file by Ms. Martin, second by Mr. Hoey. Ms. Martin?
Just a quick question. So do we have the materials for us to do our part of this?
Thank you, Ms. Martin. I handed out printed copies. If anyone, I know Mr. Gignac likes to always have the Word copy, we'll email it to you. If anybody else would like to have the Word, we'll be more than happy to email you that one directly. You would like the Word? Okay. Yeah, Mr. Frisch distributed them earlier. And there are, hang on a second. Here's here if you would like. If you didn't get one, we have a couple more here. Oh, here, I'm sorry. Mr. Frisch. All right, here they are. And I can email them to you as a Word format.
I think they've been handed out to everybody.
So with the format, we just need to get the completed form back to you by December 1st as well?
Yes.
So the meeting happens, any meetings need to happen before that, and then we get that back to your office?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, okay.
Ms. Monson?
Yes, I had a question for the superintendent on the AP participation program, Mass Insights. Have any other cities done this program? Have they seen great results with it, or?
Yeah, my experience with them, I had used them in Winchendon, and we more than doubled our participation of students. But more important than that is also just by having better trained and certified teachers in AP, teaching AP, we really pushed the scores up because they were better trained in teaching AP classes.
That's all, thank you.
Business. And we have a budget transfer, the amount of $48,721 from various departments to various departments. Do we have a motion to approve? By Mr. Gignac, seconded by Mr. Gendron. Mr. Gignac.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. During that wonderful presentation, my laptop died, so I don't have it in front of me. But I noticed when I was reviewing this that it's appearing as this is student activities accounts. Is that correct, or is it general supplies?
General supplies, it also has student activity accounts as well. We did reallocate both based upon the October enrollments.
Okay, some of them look pretty large. Is that?
Yeah, for instance,
Is that what this enrollment report was given to us for? Is it related or no?
Not that one.
Okay.
But the one is in your packet is related. So some of the schools, one was the Rogers, had a large increase due to the additional kids, 100 kids that went to the school.
Okay. And we don't, that's okay. We're going to have a finance subcommittee meeting in the next few weeks, and we'll talk about it further.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? The Chair would entertain a motion to approve. Motion to approve. Made and seconded. Roll call.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
The next item is the school choice tuition revolving fund. Do we have a motion to approve? Motion approved by Mr. Gendron, seconded by Mr. Gignac. Discussion on the motion. Roll call.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
And the final item on the regular agenda is a discussion and action on the enter judgment of the Superior Court regarding Lowell High School site. Chair would entertain a motion to just place it on file.
Sure.
by Mr. Gignac, second by Mr. Hoey. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted.
Do you need a vote not to move forward, or for the committee not to formally not appeal? Is that what you're mouthing?
Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
I would appreciate if we could take a formal vote of the action in open meeting.
Okay.
Sure. I'll make a motion that the school committee goes on record of not moving forward with an appeal.
Okay.
Second.
Second by Mr. Hoey. Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Mr. Gignac.
If I could just make one comment. Prior to this meeting, we met with the Student Advisory Committee from Lowell High School, and it's probably the last time I'm going to be meeting with that group. And they had one major request, and that is to bring back Baked Potato Day at Lowell High School. So if there's anything I can accomplish this term, it is to bring back Baked Potato Day. And I know my friends at Aramark will truly appreciate that coming from me.
Well, I'd like to invite you to that day.
I will be there.
To eat the potato.
I will be there if you buy. Thank you.
We'll give you a cold potato.
I think everybody, Mr. Gignac, appreciates that you've often taken the lead on food issues. Mr. Superintendent?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to bring to your attention, we do have one more item that we need to deal. It's an item that you put on hold last week, so it's still hanging on hold. I'd like to clear that up, and that's the item of travel for the wing school. And since then, you had asked a question about this, the policy. We do have the policy. The policy does not prevent necessarily doing it during school days. It just makes sure that the teacher who does it presents an explanation of what they do during the school days, and we've been assured that they will be involved in learning during that time. And by the way, this trip has been approved even before my time. We're years and years before my time doing it pretty much at the same period of time. So this has been tradition.
Do we have a motion on this? A motion by Mr. Gignac to approve the trip. Second by Ms. Martin. Discussion? Yes.
So the policy as it reads, and as was distributed to all of us, does absolutely, it can happen that it can use school days, but it requires that the teacher provide not just telling us that they're going to, the itinerary, it's linking it to specific standards, curriculum standards that are established within whatever area of study is being impacted. And it also is expected that it will come with the packet, so that when we receive the request, we get all the information together at the same time. So, I mean, that was the intent behind the policy that was put in place years ago, and I know this trip has gone on for a while, but it should have adhered to that policy.
Right. As I said, this trip has been going on for a while the same way. I did not seek to do any changes to it. Now that we know, I know I have to ask our Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum to immediately look into it. After the day you asked me the question, she did. She contacted Mrs. Stoll. She contacted, I can have Ms. Desmond talk to it if you want. I mean, about this trip personally, but I think if we want to, in fairness to them, if we want to really impose it exactly as the intent of the policy, we should do that starting, next trips and asking them to present that with the packet.
I mean, it's a policy. So
Yeah.
it's a policy that exists. It's a policy that has existed since 2009, right? I mean, I think that was the date on it. I'm going on memory from just when I read it. So I don't want to hold these kids back from doing this trip. I'm in favor of trips. But there are certain things that we expect when we approve a trip. I don't think it's outlandish for us to expect a policy will be adhered to, and that we'll get the information we need so that we can justify saying you're taking 2-3 days out of school, and so that we can support that. I mean, we want to be supportive. We're simply asking to get the information we need to make that choice. Thanks.
Ms. Doherty.
Your Honor, I'd like to support Ms. Martin's contention. The trip is going to happen, it's supposed to happen in May, right? They're going to be out a week. I think to require that they justify what the learning is going to be, it's written in the policy. I think we should delay the vote till we get that information. And I would also strongly urge them to try to change the time of the trip in the future, to not take a week out of school.
Mr. Gignac, do you want to withdraw the motion?
Sure.
Okay. So, Mr. Gendron.
Well, I don't know why we couldn't support, I mean, I talked to Principal Stahl about this, and, you know, apparently this is a trip that has happened in the past, and, you know, there is intent to make it based, learning-based. I don't know why we couldn't go forward and approve the trip with the condition that we require them to provide us a report on how they intend to make it, you know, learning-based. You know, I don't want to stop this trip. I want it to go forward. Planning is already underway. People are excited about it. We shouldn't do it. But I think that we need to be careful about authorizing trips that take a week out of school. When we do, it ought to be accompanied by a report that shows how it's going to be learning-based. So I would like to, before you withdraw that, Mr. Gignac, I'd like to propose that I amend the motion to say we require Principal Stahl to deliver us a report detailing how it's going to be learning-based.
Okay, the motion is withdrawn, so
All
how
right.
about a motion by you to approve?
I'd make a motion to approve.
With the stipulation that-
with the stipulation that a report be delivered to us indicating how it's going to be learning-based.
And when do you want that report?
By our next meeting.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion? Second by Mr. Gignac. Discussion on that motion? Roll call.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey? Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion adjourned by Ms. Martin, seconded by Mr. Dakota. All in favor, all opposed, stand adjourned.